Chapter 663. This was indeed the case. When Lu Yi pushed open the second door and entered Immortal Essence City, Yi had noticed something strange. Lu Ye's entire body seemed to be an empty shell. At first, she thought that Lu Yi had encountered some kind of mishap and burst into tears, but soon realized that things were not as serious as she thought, because she and Hu Po were still alive, which meant that Lu Yi was still alive. However, the situation was not optimistic. Lu Ye's aura was very weak, so weak that it was almost impossible to perceive it without paying attention. Over the past few days, Yi had tried all kinds of methods to wake Lu Yi up, but to little avail. At this moment she clearly felt that Lu Yi had returned. That aura, which was so weak that it could be annihilated at any time, was growing at a speed visible to the naked eye, and the empty shell now had a soul. She constantly called out Lu Ye's name, her pleading voice penetrating through the invisible barrier and reaching straight to Lu Ye's heart, causing ripples to appear in his mind. As the ripples spread, Lu Ye's consciousness quickly recovered, and he gradually understood his situation. After an unknown period of time, he finally regained control of his body and opened his eyes with difficulty. At a glance he saw Yi kneeling in front of him, her face full of anxiety and worry. Her eyes were red, and if it were not for her spirit body, she would have burst into tears long ago. Lu Yi. Their eyes met and Yi called out in surprise, "How are you? What happened?" Lu Ye's lips wriggled, and after trying for a long time, he finally spoke in a hoarse voice. "Don't worry." Originally, he wanted to say a few words of comfort to Yi, but at this moment, his control over his body was unprecedentedly weak, making it difficult for him to say anything more. Fortunately, this was the guest room of Heavenly Secret Commerce Union, so there was no danger. If he encountered such a situation in the wild, he would have been doomed. Closing his eyes, he continued to adjust his condition. Time passed and gradually the incompatibility between his body and soul eased a lot. At this moment, Lu Yi could not help but have the illusion that he had regained control of his body after being ill for a long time. Remembering Ji Yuan's previous words, he quickly took out the jade bottle full of soul water from his storage space and swallowed a drop. Lu Yi originally felt a little tired after the return of his divine soul, but after the effects of the soul water, this mental exhaustion quickly melted away. He let out a long sigh of relief. The most difficult moment had finally passed. Yi had been standing guard at the side, and Hu Po was also looking at him worriedly. Lu Yi raised her hand and rubbed Hu Po's head. She looked at Yi and said, "It's okay now. What the hell is going on? Did something go wrong with your cultivation? Did you go berserk?" Yi's imagination was running wild. Qi deviation was something that rarely happened to the cultivators of 9 regions, because the cultivation of cultivators was, after all, a step-by-step process. As long as one didn't take the risk to try any special cultivation method, very few people would suffer from Qi deviation. It's a long story. Lu Yi sighed. Who would have thought that he would enter the Immortal Essence City and participate in a war against the Zerg race in the Immortal Essence City, when he decided to sharpen himself in the Mirage Realm? In front of Yi there was no need to hide anything. Lu Yi briefly recounted what he had encountered before. When she heard that Lu Yi had entered the Immortal Essence City again, and that the situation in the Immortal Essence City was completely different from the last time they entered, and even that the whole city contained a huge secret, Yi was very surprised. Especially when she heard that Lu Datong, Yu Qing and others, in order to escort Lu Yi back to the stronghold, one by one without hesitation, the little girl couldn't help but turn red. When she heard that the spirit body in the Immortal Essence City was immortal, and that the annihilated butcher team was resurrected, the little girl smiled. In short, the city lord of the Immortal Essence City said that my cultivation base has not yet reached the Divine Sea realm, so if my divine soul leaves my body for a long time, it will cause the divine soul and the body to be incompatible. He asked me to use the soul water to stabilize my divine soul recently, so there's no big problem. Yi nodded. Then you have to take a good rest for a while. Lu Yi nodded and touched his stomach. I'm a little hungry. Yi quickly got up. I'll have someone bring in some food. Saying so, she left the guest room. The service of the Tianji Business Alliance was still very good. The cultivators who stayed here had almost everything they wanted. In a short while delicious food was brought in. Of course, there was also fresh demonic beast meat, which was for Hupa. One person and one tiger swept away the clouds and ate to their heart's content. Lu Yi took out a few jade bottles, filled them with soul water, and handed them to Yi. Yi herself was a spiritual body. Although she could become stronger with the help of the amber, with the help of the soul water, her divine soul could continue to become stronger. It could be said that the soul water was more useful to her than Lu Yi. To strengthen the divine soul, one could use the soul water, and to strengthen one's body, one could use the dragon scales. These two things were the most important foundation for every cultivator. A strong foundation was the capital that allowed Lu Yi to continuously kill enemies of a higher realm. Moreover, a strong foundation could also make cultivation easier, thus forming a virtuous cycle. After eating and drinking to his heart's content, Lu Yi sat upright and closed his eyes to rest. He didn't cultivate, nor did he read any books. After an unknown period of time, Yi's voice suddenly sounded, "Lu Yi was startled and hurriedly opened his eyes, only to find that his vision was very strange. He didn't know when he had flown up, but he was now a few feet above the ground. Yi looked at him worriedly. Hupu also widened his eyes, looking at himself for a while, then looking to the side. Lu Yi followed Hupo's gaze and saw an extremely familiar figure. When he looked again, Lu Yi jumped in fright. That familiar figure was clearly him. What was going on? Lu Yi didn't know what was going on, but his vision suddenly distorted, as if there was an irresistible force pulling him. His entire body sank down into his own body. Slowly opening his eyes, Lu Yi slowly came to his senses. His divine soul had just left his body again, and it was without him noticing. Ji Yuan was right. His cultivation had yet to reach the divine sea, and his divine soul had left his body for a long time, causing his body and divine soul to be incompatible. If Yi hadn't shouted just now, he wouldn't have noticed at all. However, this wasn't a big problem in the end. Over the next few days, Lu Ye's soul inexplicably left his body several times. Sometimes it was while meditating, sometimes it was while walking. As he walked, he heard a thud behind him. When he turned around, he saw that it was his own body that had fallen to the ground. More often than not, he suddenly lost control of his own body, and his body's movements became uncoordinated. These few days' encounters were somewhat bizarre. Not to mention Cloud River tier, even true Lake tier and Divine Sea tier cultivators might not encounter such a thing. This kind of unforeseen event had a great impact on cultivators. Cultivators often fell into battles, and if this kind of thing suddenly happened during a battle, no matter how many lives they had, it wouldn't be enough. Lu Yi would swallow a drop of soul water every day to stabilize his divine soul. After a few days, the frequency of this kind of unforeseen event became lower and lower, until it didn't appear again. Lu Yi was still worried, and stayed in the Tianji Business Alliance for a few more days. Only then did he confirm that the situation of his divine soul suddenly leaving his body would not happen again. He could feel that his divine soul and body had merged again at this moment. He could also feel that his divine soul had become stronger after the experience in Immortal Essence City. No matter what, in Immortal Essence City, he had soaked in the soul pool once again. For other cultivators, the strengthening of their divine soul was undoubtedly a good thing. In the beginning, Lu Yi was also happy. Cultivating until now, he had relied on the strength of his divine soul to have advantages that other cultivators didn't have. For example, when he encountered a sudden attack, he could sense and react more quickly. Another example was the Heart's Eye secret technique taught by Xiaoliang. If his divine soul wasn't strong enough, he wouldn't have been able to learn it so quickly. However, Lu Yi gradually felt that something was wrong. The strength of his divine soul was too strong, and it was about to exceed the level of his cultivation by a big realm. This was not necessarily a good thing. If the physical body was a container and the soul was the water contained in the container, then the growth of an ordinary cultivator was the growth of the container and the amount of water it contained. No matter how much the cultivator grew, the physical body was the container that could contain his soul. But he was different. The growth of his divine soul was faster than the growth of his body. In short, the container of the body was carrying a volume that shouldn't belong to the container, and it was also bearing a pressure that shouldn't be borne. The most serious consequence might cause the container to break. The intuitive manifestation was that the container was broken, or the water in the container overflowed. The reason why this situation hadn't happened until now was mainly because Lu Ye's physique was strong enough. For a long time, he had improved his physique with the help of the qi and blood in the dragon scales, making his physique comparable to a body cultivator of the same level. He would often eat some demon beast flesh and blood to supplement his own qi and blood with the help of the gluttonous meal. In the cultivation world of 9 regions, there had never been a situation like Lu Ye's. Perhaps some people's divine soul was stronger than their physical body, but it had never exceeded the exaggeration of a big realm. Therefore, after his physical body and divine soul were reunited, Lu Yi faintly noticed the hidden dangers in his body. It was actually very simple to solve this hidden danger. He just had to improve his cultivation and expand the volume of the container. Originally, he had this opportunity. More than 300,000 battle points could be exchanged for more than 20 golden spirit sticks, which could raise his cultivation to the Cloud River Realm 8th or 9th order in one fell swoop. However, all the battle points he obtained in Immortal Essence City had been exchanged for soul water. In the long run, the value of soul water was much greater than the golden spirit sticks, but in the end, distant water couldn't quench immediate thirst. Fortunately, Lu Yi knew a place that could quickly improve his cultivation. To be continued. Chapter 664. Lu Yi had planned on taking a look at that place ever since he entered the Cloud River battlefield. However, in the beginning, he did not have a particularly good understanding of the situation in the Cloud River battlefield. His cultivation was not high either, so he did not act rashly. Of course, the main reason was that he had not made sufficient preparations. He was unable to maximize his benefits in that place. Spiritual pills and spiritual stones were not particularly useful in that place. What was truly useful were things that could recover the power of the soul. Originally, he planned on going after he had made some preparations, but he could not wait any longer. The main reason was that there was no need for him to make any preparations. He had already obtained what he needed the most: the 100 Formation Tower. This was the holy land of the formation cultivators of the 9 provinces, as well as the place where formation cultivators cultivated their path of formations. Rumor had it that the 100 Formation Tower was something left behind from the previous epoch of cultivation. It had a total of 100 floors and each floor had a different trial. Each floor was more difficult than the last. If one could pass the trial, they would receive a reward from the heavenly secrets, and all of the rewards were related to formations. This attracted countless cultivators from the 9 provinces to enter the 100 Formation Tower to train and hone their path of formations. However, the complete 100 Formation Tower had ceased to exist a long time ago. No one knew what had happened to the 100 Formation Tower. Now the 100 Formation Tower had been split into 3 parts. The first part, which was the bottommost part, was in the Mist Province's Heaven Expanse sect. Lu Yi had once received an invitation from a cultivator of the Heaven Expanse sect called Zhao Li to visit the Heaven Expanse sect's encampment as a guest. Afterwards, he entered the main sect of the Heaven Expanse sect and made it through 33 floors in a single go, which led to a great uproar in the entire sect. Before challenging the 100 Formation Tower, Lu Yi had some attainments in the path of formations, but it was not to an exaggerated degree. However, ever since he challenged the 100 Formation Tower of the Heaven Expanse sect, Lu Ye's attainments in the path of formations had basically skyrocketed. This was also why he was able to act as he pleased in the Spirit Stream battlefield. There had never been a Spirit Stream cultivator with such great attainments in the path of formations. Infiltrating the defensive formations of other encampments was as simple as eating and drinking. Coupled with Lu Ye's strength that surpassed cultivators of the same level, his existence was basically a nightmare for the various sects of the Myriad Demon Ridge on the Spirit Stream battlefield. The Myriad Demon Ridge's side could only rejoice that Lu Yi had long since advanced to the Cloud River realm and left the Spirit Stream battlefield. Otherwise, who knew what would happen to the Spirit Stream battlefield? It could be said that Lu Ye's current attainments in the formation were partly attributed to his foundation as a spiritual tattooist. Many spiritual tattoos were used in the formation, and he could easily construct many spiritual tattoos, which gave him an advantage that ordinary people couldn't reach in setting up and breaking formations. But the main reason was the gift from the 100 Formation Pagoda. At that time, Lu Ye's cultivation was only at the 8th order spirit stream realm. After the sealed world in Immortal Origin City, Lu Yi received a gift from the 100 Array Tower that far surpassed any other array cultivator in the past, raising his attainments in the Tao of Arrays to a level that was difficult for cultivators of the same level to reach. His foundation as a spiritual tattooist gave him a certain advantage when it came to setting up and breaking formations. The gift from the 100 Formation Pagoda was the foundation that raised his attainments in the Tao of Arrays. And for a long time after, this gift was still active, allowing Lu Ye's comprehension of the Tao of Arrays to increase day by day. Zhao Li of the Heaven Expanse sect had once told Lu Yi that those who could make it through the first 10 floors of the 100 Formation Pagoda could basically be considered a beginner in the Tao of Arrays. They could barely be considered a qualified array cultivator. If they could make it through the 20th floor, they would be proficient in the Tao of Arrays. If they could make it through the 33rd floor, they could be called a Grandmaster, an Array Grandmaster at the Spirit Stream realm. Just how exaggerated of an honor was that? Back in the mine at the outskirts of the Great Mang Mountains, the guy called Si Nan had tried to stop Lu Yi with a defensive array. In the end, it proved that the defensive array he thought was impregnable was nothing in front of Lu Yi. He never thought that the difference in their attainments in the Tao of Arrays would be so great. A portion of the 100 Formation Pagoda was in the Mist Province's Heaven Expanse sect, while a second portion was on the Cloud River battlefield. Lu Yi had experienced the 100 Formation Pagoda before, and he had also obtained unimaginable benefits from it. As a result, after breaking through to the Cloud River realm and arriving on the Cloud River battlefield, he had planned to attempt the 100 Formation Pagoda one day. In the past, his cultivation was still low, and he was not prepared, so it was difficult for him to do so. With his experience last time, Lu Yi knew that the greatest problem that formation cultivators faced in the 100 Formation Pagoda was the exhaustion of the power of the mind. Last time, he had relied on the soul-cleansing water to overcome the difficulties time and time again, so he would receive a great gift every time. He did not have a lot of soul-cleansing water on hand in the past, so he was not too bold to enter the 100 Formation Pagoda rashly. In the past few days, whenever he entered the Heavenly Secrets Treasury to search for resources, he would pay attention to whether there were any treasures or pills that could recover the power of the soul. But he had never found anything. After all, treasures or elixirs that could restore the power of the spiritual soul were of great use to warriors at the Spirit Sea realm. Even if they appeared in the Tianji treasury, they would be bought quickly. How could Lu Yi ever have a chance? This unintentional trip to the Immortal Essence City had given him a large amount of soul-cleansing water, and it was much more soul-cleansing water than the previous time. This resolved his greatest concern. Now that everything was ready, and Lu Yi was eager to improve his cultivation, the 100 Formation Pagoda was unavoidable. Every time he passed a level of the 100 Formation Pagoda, he would receive not only array Tao items, but the spiritual chi of heaven and earth in the 100 Formation Pagoda was also extremely rich and pure. Last time, Lu Yi had opened dozens of apertures in the Sky Expanse sect, and that was the lowest level of the 100 Formation Pagoda. The 100 Formation Pagoda in the Cloud River battlefield should be even more effective. If nothing went wrong, his cultivation should be able to improve a little. He knew the location of the 100 Formation Pagoda. It was not close to the Heavenly Secrets Business Alliance. Even if he rushed there at full speed, it would take him more than 10 days. Moreover, there were probably many experts from the Myriad Devil Ridge monitoring his movements. Once he showed himself, he would definitely be hunted down. Lu Yi sighed inwardly. His peaceful days would not last long. He would have to start his life as a fugitive again. But before that, he still needed a large number of array flags. The difficulty of passing the 100 Formation Pagoda was the test of mental strength. Every level would put a huge burden on a cultivator's mind. If one's mental strength was not strong enough, it would be difficult to pass through too many levels in one go. The second difficulty was the use of array flags. After all, regardless of whether it was breaking or setting up arrays, array flags would be consumed. Lu Yi did not choose to refine them himself. Although it was more cost-effective, he had a lot of merit points now. It did not matter if he used some of them. He walked out of his room and queued up in the Heavenly Secrets Hall. His mind connected to the Heavenly Secrets Treasury, and he bought a large number of array flags. Outside the Heavenly Secrets Business Alliance, there was a tea house that looked directly at the entrance of the business alliance. Both the owner and the waiters were delighted. The business of the tea house had always been lukewarm. Cultivators came and went in a hurry. Unless there was something to discuss or a reunion after a long separation, they would rarely patronize places like the tea house. Instead, they would go to places like restaurants. But recently, the business of the tea house had exploded. Every day, some cultivators would come in to drink tea. Moreover, they would occupy a table and sit there for many days. The tea house only had 2 floors. At this moment, both the upper and lower floors were full. In the beginning, the waiters of the tea house did not know what was going on. But as time passed, news gradually spread and they understood what these people were doing. Previously, the matter of 20 million Devil Ridge cultivators being poisoned to death in the mines outside Mount Taimong had caused a great uproar. The name of the instigator, Wuxia of the Jade Blood Sect, had also spread widely in the Cloud River battlefield. Now that crazy Wuxia was hiding in the Heavenly Secrets Business Alliance. Many Devil Ridge cultivators who had heard the news from various channels had gathered here, wanting to get a share of the profits. Previously, a few Devil Ridge cultivators could not hold back and had broken into the Heavenly Secrets Business Alliance to kill Wuxia. In the end, they had been killed on the spot by the people of the Heavenly Secrets Business Alliance. Not only that, but their sects had also been implicated. For the next 3 years, they would not be able to do any business with the Heavenly Secrets Business Alliance. Under this deterrence, no one dared to cause trouble in the Heavenly Secrets Business Alliance. Even if someone went in to investigate Wuxia's whereabouts, they would pretend to be doing business. Whether Wuxia was hiding in the Heavenly Secrets Business Alliance, no one knew. This was because from the beginning to the end, no one had really seen him walk in. It was just a suspicion. But according to the rumors after the mine incident, a person wearing a mask had walked into the business alliance with a huge bag. That person's figure was exactly the same as Wuxia's. Wearing a mask was undoubtedly because he did not want to reveal his true appearance. As for the huge bag, it was very likely that it was the spoils of war after killing 2,000 people with poison. Therefore, although it was just a suspicion, many Devil Ridge cultivators still concluded that Wuxia was hiding here. Among them, Sacred Flame sects Chu Yun and Zhou Pei were the most determined. The 2 of them were the first to arrive here. During this time, many Devil Ridge cultivators had lost their patience and left. However, the 2 of them had been sitting here for so many days, not moving at all. On the other side of the 2nd floor of the tea house, there were 2 familiar figures. They were the lingering Xiaoliang and Tan Shang. When a large number of Devil Ridge cultivators had gathered outside the Huitian Valley, the 2 of them had miscalculated Wuxia's response. They had thought that he would definitely escape back to the 9 states, so they had left early. In the end, the development of the situation was completely different from what they had imagined. When they received the news and rushed to the mine, they saw a scene of purgatory. More than 2,000 Devil Ridge cultivators' corpses lay across the ground, making their scalps tingle. They could not help but feel a lingering fear. Fortunately, the 2 of them had not arrived too early. Otherwise, they would have become one of the 2,000 people. Apart from these 4 people, most of the other cultivators were related to those who had been poisoned to death by Wuxia. Some of them had childhood friends whose senior brothers had died tragically in Wuxia's hands, and some of their junior sisters had died. How could they not take revenge for such a grudge? Driven by hatred, they gathered from all directions. To be continued. Chapter 665. There were many cultivators from the myriad Devil Ridge gathered in the tea house, and there was no lack of experts among them. However, not many of them were confident that they could kill Lu Yi. As long as Lu Yi hid in the Heavenly Secret Business Alliance, they would be helpless. Furthermore, the Heavenly Secret Business Alliance had the Heavenly Secret Pillar, which meant that Lu Yi could return to the 9 states at any time. It could be said that Lu Yi's current situation was countless times safer than when he was in Huitian Valley. Most of the cultivators from the myriad Devil Ridge gathered here because they were unwilling to give up. There were also some who were hoping for a fluke. What if Lu Yi ran out of the Heavenly Secret Business Alliance recklessly? He probably didn't know that there were so many pairs of eyes watching him from outside. After waiting for so many days, Many people had already lost their patience. However, since they had already waited for so long, they might as well wait a few more days to see if there was any change in the situation. In another 10 days or half a month, more than 80% of the cultivators gathered here would disappear. After all, no one would keep watching until there was conclusive news. However, at noon on this day, things took a turn for the better. There were a lot of cultivators gathered in the tea house, so it had always been noisy. However, at a certain moment the noise suddenly calmed down. It was as if someone had activated an invisible soundproof barrier, enveloping the entire tea house. At the window of the tea house, the cultivators from the Myriad Devil Ridge looked in the direction of the Heavenly Secret Business Alliance in disbelief. They didn't know when a figure had appeared there. That person was wearing a mask and had suddenly appeared at the entrance of the Heavenly Secret Business Alliance. Judging from his posture, he had just walked out of the Heavenly Secret Business Alliance. In the 9 states, there were many cultivators who liked to wear masks, especially those ghost cultivators who acted sneakily. Therefore, a mask alone didn't mean anything. One's appearance could be covered by a mask, but one's figure couldn't be changed. What shocked the cultivators from the Myriad Devil Ridge was that that person's figure was very similar to Lu Ye's. As if sensing their gazes, the person standing at the entrance of the Heavenly Secret Business Alliance looked up at the second floor of the tea house. When their gazes met, many cultivators from the Myriad Devil Ridge looked nervous and excited. They were excited because this person was most likely Lu Ye, and he was really hiding in the Heavenly Secret Business Alliance. He was nervous because the other party had already noticed the situation in the tea house and might not dare to come out. If he turned around and returned to the Tianji Business Alliance, no one could do anything to him. After a short moment of silent confrontation, the person suspected to be Lu Ye strode out of the Heavenly Secret Commerce Alliance's territory in front of everyone's eyes. The group of Myriad Demons rich cultivators almost cheered in surprise. Under the mask, Lu Ye looked helpless. Previously, he had been warned by the steward of the Heavenly Secret Business Alliance that there were many Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators monitoring his movements. However, he did not expect that after so many days, there would still be so many people. These guys were really patient. Of course, he had a safer and more reliable solution, which was to return to the Heavenly Secret Business Alliance and return to the 9 provinces. He would wait for a month before coming back. By then, no one would know where he was. However, if he wanted to, he would have made this choice in the Huitian Valley long ago. Why would he wait until today? Besides, so what if he came back a month later? Countless cultivators in the Myriad Devil Ridge were watching him. No matter where he was, as long as he dared to appear in front of others, he would definitely attract a lot of trouble. Unless he was hiding in the 9 provinces' main sect. It was useless to hide his appearance. Therefore, when Lu Ye stepped out of the Heavenly Secret Business Alliance, he raised his hand and took off the mask on his face. In an instant, the many gazes that were looking at him from afar became much sharper. Previously, they had only been guessing. Now that he had taken off the mask, Lu Ye's identity was confirmed. After taking a few steps, Lu Ye summoned his spirit boat and stepped on it. He activated his spirit power and the spirit boat soared into the sky, turning into a stream of light and flying in a certain direction. After him, someone in the tea house shouted in a low voice. In the next instant, everyone took action and flew out of the windows. It wasn't just this tea house. Numerous figures suddenly appeared in the buildings around the Heavenly Secret Commerce Alliance and flew up into the air. The tea house that was originally filled with guests was emptied out in an instant. This huge movement stunned some of the cultivators who didn't know what was going on. No one knew what was going on. In the sky, Lu Ye was in the lead, and behind him were at least 300 streams of multicolored light. At first glance, it looked like Lu Ye was leading a group of cultivators to do something, but in fact, the cultivators who were chasing after him were all itching to tear him to shreds. They thought that as long as Lu Ye dared to leave the Heavenly Secret Business Alliance, he would definitely die. However, after a while, many cultivators in the Myriad Devil Ridge realized that something was wrong. How is this little brat so fast? Someone asked in surprise. He was an 8th Order Cloud River Realm cultivator. Although speed wasn't his forte, it was still above average. Logically speaking, it was impossible for Lu Ye, a 5th Order Cloud River Realm cultivator, to escape from his pursuit. But in fact, the distance between him and Lu Yi didn't show any signs of closing. In other words, in terms of flying speed, Lu Yi, a 5th-order cultivator, was almost the same as an 8th-order cultivator. The flying speed of a cultivator depended on the strength of their cultivation. Generally speaking, the higher the cultivation, the faster the flying speed. Therefore, it was very difficult for cultivators with low cultivation to survive in the hands of cultivators with high cultivation. If they couldn't win or escape, they could only die. Of course, there was also the factor of flying spirit artifacts. Different flying spirit artifacts were branded with different spirit arrays, which could bring different benefits to cultivators. Some expensive flying spirit artifacts could indeed allow cultivators to fly faster, but such flying spirit artifacts were all very expensive. The 8th-order cultivator quickly realized that flying spirit artifacts, which were valuable to other cultivators, were nothing to the famous dog Lu Yi. This guy didn't have much, but he had a lot of merit points. He could easily get 1 or 2 heavenly secret pillars. It was normal for him to get a top flying spirit artifact from the heavenly secret treasure house. In a moment of envy, jealousy, and hatred, the 8th-order cultivator became even more determined to kill Lu Yi. But at this moment, he also understood that it wouldn't be his turn to kill Lu Yi. The 9th-order Cloud River Realm cultivators were flying faster than him, and were constantly closing the distance between them. As long as they caught up, Lu Yi would die without a doubt. It was a pity, and he only hated himself for being an 8th-order cultivator instead of a 9th-order cultivator. Time passed by, and the 300 or so people who had chased out of Heavenly Secret City gradually widened the distance between them. Those with lower cultivations were at the back, while those at the front had higher cultivations. The dozen or so figures at the front were all 9th-order Cloud River Realm cultivators. All of them were desperately pushing their flying spirit artifacts, and the spirit chi in their bodies surged endlessly. At this juncture, what they needed to do was not just to kill Lu Yi, but also to be one step faster than the others. After all, Lu Yi only had one head, and whoever made the first move had the highest chance of taking Lu Ye's life. At the front, Lu Yi stuffed a few spirit pills into his mouth and chewed slowly. Although he was being chased by a large group of myriad demons rich cultivators, he didn't panic in the slightest. He even had the mood to assess his current strength. He dared to swagger out of the Heavenly Secret Commerce Union under the noses of so many myriad demons rich cultivators, not because he was hot-headed, but because he had a certain degree of confidence that he could resolve this crisis. Of course, he was alone, and it was impossible for him to be the opponent of so many enemies. Once they caught up to him, there was no way he could survive. But the premise was that they caught up to him. At this moment, he was only driving his spirit ship, and after adding a wind travel spirit rune to it, he was basically on par with an ordinary 8th-order cultivator. And this wasn't even his maximum speed. After some evaluation, he felt that if he went all out, those 9th-order cultivators might not be able to catch up to him. Being able to reach this level with a 5th-order Cloud River Realm cultivation, the opportunity he obtained in Fox Immortal Valley played a huge role. The baptism bestowed upon him by Heaven's secrets had allowed his already powerful foundation to reach a new height. Furthermore, his cultivation had increased by a level. Not only did this give him the ability to kill enemies 3 levels higher than him, it also gave him an even faster flying speed. Of course, this didn't mean that he could sit back and relax while being chased by 9th-order Cloud River Realm cultivators. What he lacked compared to 9th-order cultivators was his own spirit chi reserves. No matter how strong his foundation was, and how solid his foundation was, the difference of 4 minor realms made his spirit chi reserves inferior. Moreover, maintaining the wind travel spirit rune consumed a lot of spirit chi. So even though he had just started fleeing, Lu Yi was already prepared to replenish his spirit chi. Ordinary cultivators didn't have this convenience. After all, how much spirit pills could they refine while fleeing? Lu Yi, on the other hand, wasn't affected in this regard. In the past, he had never had the opportunity to seriously compete with 9th-order Cloud River Realm cultivators in terms of flying speed. Now, after trying it out, Lu Yi was even more confident in himself. A resentful voice came from behind him. "Lu Yi, you can't escape. Die quickly." Lu Yi turned a deaf ear to this. To be honest, he had heard similar words many times in different situations, but the result was that he was still alive and well, while the cultivators of the Myriad Devil Ridge who made things difficult for him didn't have a good ending. The last time he spoke to him like this was the cultivator from Abyss Rainbow Hall named Song Jue. Speeding over 100 kilometers, the distance between the Ninth Order cultivators and Lu Yi was getting closer and closer. It was already close enough for them to attack. At the same time, Lu Yi also clearly felt a sharp aura locking onto him from behind. Just as the myriad demons' rich cultivators were about to attack, Lu Ye's figure suddenly fell at a speed so fast that it shocked them. This caused them to feel terrible, and they hurriedly dispersed the spirit chi they were secretly circulating. Immediately after, they saw Lu Yi turn around and fly past them, disappearing into the distance in the blink of an eye. He was actually flying back in the direction he came from. To be continued. Chapter 666. Behind the group of Ninth Order Cloud River Realm cultivators were the Eighth Order cultivators. Originally, they were about to give up the chase, because according to the current situation, Lu Yi would die at the hands of those Ninth Order cultivators. It would be useless even if they chased after him. However, at this moment they actually saw Lu Yi lower his body, turn around and fly back. All of them were overjoyed at the unexpected good news. One by one, they landed on the ground, intending to intercept him. But before they could prepare, they saw Lu Yi put away his spirit boat and a pair of fiery red wings spread out from his back. His whole body turned into a red light and swept past them. The moment the wings appeared, Lu Ye's speed increased by a whole level. Everyone's expression changed. They hadn't expected that Lu Ye actually had such a method. Some people faintly realized something and couldn't help but look worriedly in the direction they had come from. They secretly exclaimed at Lu Ye's audacity and recklessness. The battle in the mine outside Grand Mang Mountain made Lu Yi understand a truth. Revenge had to be done early, preferably not overnight. Otherwise, if he missed it, even if he became stronger in the future, he might not have a chance to take revenge. After all, the Cloud River battlefield was so big that it was very difficult to find the whereabouts of a certain person. With his current strength, he was indeed not a match for Ninth Order cultivators. He would have a hard time fighting against Eighth Order cultivators, but killing those below the Eighth Order was basically not too difficult. The hundreds of cultivators who chased after him from Heaven's Fate City had uneven cultivations. After flying for 100 kilometers, the hundreds of cultivators formed a straight line, with those with lower cultivation being further back. Lu Yi had already passed through the Eighth Order and Ninth Order cultivators, and was now facing those below the Eighth Order. Originally, these cultivators had almost lost sight of Lu Ye's figure, but driven by interest and hatred, they continued to pursue. Suddenly, they saw a figure covered in flowing flames rushing towards them, and they couldn't help but be startled. Looking around, someone shouted in surprise, "It's Lu Yi." As the words fell, many cultivators summoned their spirit artifacts and secretly pushed their spirit chi, waiting for Lu Yi to arrive in front of them to teach him a lesson. In the next instant, the fiery red stream of light crashed into the group of myriad demons, rich cultivators with an indestructible aura. Violent spiritual energy surged endlessly at this moment, and the rumbling sound was endless, accompanied by screams and exclamations. In the blink of an eye, the red light Lu Yi had transformed into was like an arrow, piercing through the enemy's formation. Behind him, the sky was filled with a bloody mist as severed limbs and flesh flew everywhere. In that instant of contact, at least 7 or 8 people were killed. The remaining myriad demon-rich cultivators all looked horrified. None of them had expected Lu Yi, a mere Fifth Order, to be able to display such strength. It was true that more than 20 million demon-rich cultivators had died at his hands in the caves outside Grand Mang Mountains, including several Ninth Order Cloud River Realm cultivators, but they had all been poisoned to death by him, not because of his own strength. Only a few people knew Lu Ye's true strength. It was only at this moment that everyone realized that Lu Ye's own strength could not be underestimated. In the brief contact just now, none of the myriad demons' rich cultivators could block a single blow from him. The red light that had pierced through the enemy's formation changed direction again and rushed forward again, killing several myriad demons' rich cultivators who had yet to recover from their shock. "Lu Yi, how dare you!" Angry shouts rang out. The 8th and 9th Order cultivators had caught up, and their eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. They never thought that under such circumstances, Lu Yi would actually have the guts to come back and kill more than a dozen people right under their noses. Although the people who had died were not related to them in any way, they still felt their faces burning. Lu Ye's actions were like a slap to their faces. Sensing that these powerful pursuers were approaching, Lu Ye did not stay any longer. After piercing through the enemy's formation for the second time, he immediately fled in a certain direction. Every time the fiery red wings on his back flapped, his figure would cross a large distance. The dozen or so ninth-order cultivators who were chasing after him were shocked to find that Lu Ye's flying speed was not inferior to theirs. In fact, it was even faster. Originally, when they left Heaven Fate City, Lu Ye's speed was already exaggerated enough. With his fifth-order cultivation, his speed was comparable to an ordinary eighth-order cultivator. Everyone thought that it was because of his flight-type spirit artifact. But now? He had put away his flight-type spirit artifact and was relying on his own ability. Moreover, his speed was even faster than before. This was simply unreasonable. At this moment, the myriad demons' rich cultivators finally understood why Lu Ye had the guts to run out of Heaven Fate City. Obviously, he had nothing to fear. "Everyone, that's a flying wing inscription," someone suddenly said. Lu Ye must have an extremely skilled inscription master behind him. The speaker obviously had a certain degree of understanding of spiritual tattoos. Although he knew that Lu Ye was also a spiritual tattooist, he didn't think that Lu Ye could construct a flying wing spiritual tattoo that could enable practitioners to fly stably. Although they were not in a state of exhaustion, they had reached a point where it would affect their strength. Seemingly aware of the faintly discernible gazes around him, the cultivator who spoke earlier gritted his teeth and said, "He won't be able to hold on for long. Fellow Taoists, victory is right in front of us, we must not give up. At the very least, we can't let him get away, otherwise everything will be over." Saying so, the spirit energy surging around his body fluctuated a few times in a very strange pattern, and immediately, his whole body became flushed red. His already extremely fast speed suddenly increased by a notch, and in an instant he pulled away from the others. Apparently, he had used some kind of secret technique to increase his speed. Seeing him so determined, the others followed suit and urged their secret techniques that they would not easily use. At their level of cultivation, they would basically cultivate some life-saving or desperate secret techniques. These secret techniques were either passed down from their sex or purchased from the Heaven's secret treasure house. In fact, Lu Ye had also cultivated some secret techniques. The heart's eye taught by Xiaoliang was a secret technique of the Wild Blade sect. The blood transmutation technique taught by third senior brother was also a secret technique. However, the two secret techniques he had learned did not have much of a backlash, especially the heart's eye secret technique, which was just an extension and expansion of one's perception. The blood transmutation technique had some backlash, but as long as one paid a little attention, the impact would not be too great. The secret techniques these ninth-order cultivators were using at this moment were different. All of them were used to increase their speed in a critical moment, so the backlash was obvious, and the longer it lasted, the greater the backlash would be. But at this moment, in order not to be left behind by Lu Ye, they did not care so much. Especially one of the sword cultivators, when the sword cry rang out, he suddenly overtook everyone else and took the lead. The gap that had been opened by Lu Ye was constantly closing. Lu Ye, who was fleeing in front, obviously felt it, but at this moment he was running at full speed. The wind walk and flight wings spirit tattoos were constantly activated, so he could no longer increase his speed. Moreover, the consumption of spirit energy in his body was huge. Even if he had been taking spirit pills to replenish his spirit energy, the consumption of spirit energy for Lu Ye to maintain the state of 2 spirit tattoos was unimaginable. The spirit energy he replenished by refining spirit pills was simply not enough to make ends meet. Fortunately, he still had his spirit storage ring. The spirit energy stored in this spirit artifact ring was either infused by him on a daily basis or dissipated by himself, so he could use it at any time without any delay or hidden dangers. As they chased, the scenery on the ground quickly passed by. Lu Ye took out his 10-minute map and checked his position, looking for a suitable hiding place around him. He had to be prepared to be caught. If he really couldn't get rid of those guys behind him, he could only find some terrain he could use to hide. Genius Station address. Mobile version reading address. Chapter 667. After a brief investigation, Lu Yi quickly turned and rushed off in a certain direction. There was a large river there that he might be able to use in a moment of crisis. The pursuers behind him were getting closer and closer, and the amount of spirit energy stored in his storage ring was dwindling. The situation was gradually becoming worse. The sound of surging water reached his ears. Lu Yi had arrived at the large river he had seen on the map. On the map, this large river was marked as the Pai River, stretching nearly 10,000 kilometers from east to west. The water was turbid and turbulent, and there were some powerful monster beasts living in it. Just as Lu Yi was considering whether to escape into the river, relying on this great river to conceal himself, the speed of his pursuers suddenly slowed down. Using this secret technique for a long time, these Ninth Order masters were also beginning to feel a little overwhelmed. How could there be a Fifth Order cultivator in this world who could run so fast? Even after going all out, they still couldn't catch up. In this situation, they were also riding a tiger and finding it difficult to dismount. They were unwilling to give up. They had been chasing for so long, and perhaps Lu Yi was about to reach the end of his life, but if they continued, who knew if they could catch up? Many pairs of eyes turned towards the Ninth Order master who had spoken before. This person's face was slightly pale at this moment. He had been the first to use his secret technique, so his consumption was also the greatest. At this moment his aura was somewhat weak, and it was obvious he was about to collapse. However, this Ninth Order master still gritted his teeth. He must be about to die. Fellow Taoists, don't give up. If you miss this opportunity, there won't be a next time. The group of Ninth Order masters didn't know what to say. However, a person's strength was limited, and one of the Ninth Order masters suddenly came to a halt, flying downwards. He couldn't hold on any longer, and if he continued chasing like this regardless of whether Lu Yi died or not, this Ninth Order master was about to reach the end of his life. After using his secret technique and suffering a backlash, if he didn't quickly restore himself, it would likely leave behind some hidden dangers. Although this Ninth Order master also wanted to kill Lu Yi, compared with an uncertain outcome in his own future, he chose the latter. If there was a first, there would be a second, in just a stick of incense worth of time, for Ninth Order masters gave up one after another. Although the remaining people were still clenching their teeth and persevering, it was clear that they would not be able to hold on for much longer. However, they still clenched their teeth and continued to give chase. It was not that they were certain that they could catch up to Lu Yi, but when they were giving chase, they had already sent a message to the outside world. At this moment, some people were rushing over from nearby. What they needed to do now was to not let Lu Yi out of their sight. Once the reinforcements arrived, Lu Yi wouldn't be able to escape. In the pursuit, they were also constantly reporting Lu Yi's current location to the outside world. Lu Yi had also noticed this and had a bad feeling about it. But there was nothing he could do to stop them. Time passed, and after an incense stick's worth of time, Lu Yi suddenly turned his head in a certain direction, only to see several streams of light rushing towards him. Judging from the flying speed of these people, they were all 8th or 9th Order cultivators. This was undoubtedly the helper that the pursuing soldiers had called for. He hurriedly changed his direction and fled away from the person. However, he didn't go far before a few more streams of light entered his field of vision. There were also people rushing over from this direction. As expected, the people chasing him were all 9th Order cultivators with a wide network of contacts. They had all called for their friends and spread the news. Naturally, those who wanted to take his life would come to participate. Lu Yi could sense that he had probably entered an encirclement. No matter which direction he fled in, there would be myriad demons-rich cultivators intercepting him. In the end, he still had to use the Pai River to escape. The turbulent and turbid river water could conceal his aura and movements very well. As long as he rushed into the Pai River, it would be difficult for the myriad demons-rich cultivators to find him. But in this way, the myriad demons-rich cultivators only needed to set up a blockade around the area where he fell into the water. It would be difficult for him to show himself unless he held his breath and fled far away. Yi's 9-spirit array could be used. If he held his breath for too long, he could enter the 9-spirit array diagram to take a breath. Presumably, the myriad demons-rich cultivators would not expect him to have such a rare treasure. So for Lu Yi, although the situation was critical, it was not to the point where he was helpless. Moreover, he had consumed too much energy and could no longer escape like this. In the end, he still had to save some strength in case of an accident. Just as he made up his mind to rush into the Pai River, a violent spirit energy fluctuation suddenly came from a certain direction. Lu Yi hurriedly looked up. In that direction, a stream of light suddenly swept out from somewhere on the ground and crashed into the myriad demons' Ridge cultivators' camp. Then a fierce battle broke out. This sudden turn of events shocked everyone. What was even more shocking was that the person who had suddenly appeared was extremely powerful. He brandished his long sword and sword chi swept out in all directions. In an extremely short period of time, he had killed those myriad Devil's Ridge cultivators until they were in a sorry state. No one knew who this person was because this person was wearing a white mask on his face so they couldn't see his face clearly. However, from the other party's curvaceous figure, it was surprisingly a woman. Even the large sleeves and wide robes couldn't hide the other party's proud figure. Her graceful figure was vividly outlined by the robes as she moved around. The myriad demon Ridge cultivators who fought against her were all shocked because the strength displayed by this woman far exceeded that of an ordinary ninth-order Cloud River realm cultivator. Originally, they had planned to surround Lu Yi with the others, but after being interrupted by this mysterious woman, they were suddenly at a loss as to what to do. Lu Yi didn't know who this woman was. Ever since he started cultivating, he had been hunted down many times. He had also received help from the cultivators of the Grand Heaven Alliance, but most of those had happened on the Spirit Stream battlefield. On the Cloud River battlefield, only the last time in the hunting ground did his fourth senior brother ask some of his friends to help him. So he did not expect that at this critical moment, someone would jump out to help him. But it was undeniable that this woman was very strong. After a brief hesitation, the fiery red wings on Lu Ye's back flapped as he gave up on the idea of escaping into the Pai River and flew straight in the woman's direction. He did not join the other party's battle and instead shouted as he flew past her, "Run!" No matter how strong this woman was, she was still alone. Since she had come to help him, Lu Yi had no reason to leave her behind. The woman obviously understood that the current situation was not suitable for her to be entangled with the enemy too much. After seeing Lu Yi rush out of the encirclement, she slashed down with a shocking sword wave, forcing the myriad demons' Ridge cultivators in front of her to retreat. She then turned around and chased after Lu Yi. She was strong enough and fast enough to catch up with Lu Yi in just a few breaths. Lu Yi secretly rejoiced that there was no such master among the myriad demons' Ridge cultivators who had been chasing him, otherwise, he would not have been able to escape for so long. But then again, this woman was a sword cultivator, and sword cultivators were known for their speed and killing. "Come with me," the woman said and led the way. Lu Yi followed closely behind. Behind him were many myriad demons' Ridge cultivators who had heard the news and rushed over. Along the way, Lu Yi and the mysterious woman did not communicate at all. However, Lu Yi was always about 300 feet away from her. The mysterious woman seemed to be here to help him, but before confirming her identity, Lu Yi did not dare to believe her rashly. Who knew if this woman was from the myriad demons' Ridge? If everything that had happened before was just a show, then he would be in a bad situation. However, the possibility of this was not high. If the mysterious woman really wanted to harm him, she could have done it now. Lu Yi was only suspicious of her hiding her head and showing her tail. Although he himself sometimes hid his head and showed his tail, however, he basically wore all kinds of facial masks, while the woman wore a simple white mask. As if sensing Lu Ye's vigilance, the mysterious woman did not say anything. She seemed to have a cold temperament and naturally had a temperament that did not allow strangers to approach her. Soon the two of them arrived in front of a rock wall. The rock wall was smooth and did not look special. However, Lu Yi saw something out of place at a glance. A formation. There were traces of someone setting up a formation here. Just as he was about to activate the spirit runes of insight, he saw a jade pendant appear in the mysterious woman's hand. She activated her spirit energy and gently shook it at the rock wall. A mystic light shot out, and an entrance quickly appeared on the rock wall that was as smooth as a mirror. The mysterious woman stepped in, but after taking a few steps, she turned back to look at Lu Yi. Because Lu Yi stood in place and did not move, As if sensing Lu Ye's scruples, the mysterious woman said, "If I wanted to kill you, you would have been dead long ago." Lu Yi did not comment on this statement. "They are catching up." As the mysterious woman spoke, her eyes under the mask looked past Lu Ye's figure, and could clearly see streams of light flying over. In less than 20 breaths, those myriad demons' rich cultivators would catch up. Lu Yi shook his head and said, "I will remember fellow Taoists' great kindness in my heart. Farewell." Even if he was sure that the mysterious woman did not have any thoughts about him, Lu Yi was not willing to follow such a powerful person into a cave. That was equivalent to putting his life in the other party's hands. One could say that he did not appreciate her kindness or that he was stubborn, but there was nothing wrong with being careful. The mysterious woman's chest rose and fell visibly. She clearly did not expect Lu Yi to have such a reaction and was a little angry. However, at this moment, she clearly did not have time to be entangled with Lu Yi. Seeing that Lu Yi was really about to leave, she hurriedly said, "Heaven's secret is my witness. I have no ill intentions towards you." Lu Yi was a little embarrassed. She came to save him, but he was suspicious of her. She even took the initiative to swear a heaven's secret oath. "Sorry." Lu Yi nodded slightly. The mysterious woman ignored him and turned to walk inside. Lu Yi hurriedly followed. Under the heaven's secret oath, no matter what the other party's purpose was, at the very least, she did not have any ill intentions towards him. This made Lu Yi have no worries. 7017K. Chapter 668. He followed the woman all the way into the depths of the mountain. After about 300 feet, there was no way out. They should be in the belly of the mountain, so the space wasn't very spacious. Although the light was dim, it didn't affect Lu Ye's vision. After suddenly arriving at such a dangerous place, Lu Yi almost suspected that the mysterious woman had made a fake heavenly oath. He originally thought that by following her, he would be able to enter a hidden place or find a place to hide, but now it seemed that wasn't the case at all. There were already fluctuations of spirit power behind him, and there were also sounds of conversation. It was obvious that the myriad devil-rich cultivators had already caught up, but before they could confirm whether there was an ambush, they didn't dare to rashly enter. However, they would definitely rush in. When that time came, Lu Yi would have no way out and his escape route would be blocked. He would undoubtedly die. "Come here." The mysterious woman in front saw Lu Yi in a daze and raised her hand to beckon him. Although Lu Yi was suspicious, he still walked forward and stood not far from the woman. "Come closer." The mysterious woman was a little impatient. Lu Ye's vigilant attitude made her feel very uncomfortable. In fact, this place wasn't very spacious, so Lu Yi couldn't get too close. Hearing her words, Lu Yi simply walked to her side and stood still. A delicate fragrance instantly lingered at the tip of his nose. All of a sudden, the mysterious woman's spiritual energy surged. As her spiritual energy surged, the mysterious runes beneath their feet glowed brightly, illuminating the dark space. Lu Yi stared at the complicated patterns under his feet in shock, then looked at the woman beside him in disbelief. However, the woman's face was covered by a mask, so Lu Yi couldn't see her expression at all. Before he could ask anything, the space shrouded in light began to distort, and in the next moment, the two figures suddenly disappeared. The commotion here alarmed the myriad devil-rich cultivators who had rushed over. After probing a little and confirming that there were no hidden traps or formations, the cultivators who had chased here all rushed in. Soon, they reached the end of the 300-meter-long passageway. However, it was empty inside. There was not a single person in sight. Where did they go? Some people were puzzled. They had clearly seen Lu Yi and the mysterious woman walk in here, and there was no path ahead, so why did they disappear for no reason? How could two living people just disappear for no reason? Teleportation formation. Someone squatted down and looked at the remnants of the formation on the ground, revealing its mysteries. I've long heard that Lu Yi can set up teleportation formations. It seems like it's true. In such an environment where there was no way forward, it was impossible for two living people to disappear for no reason. However, if they borrowed the power of the teleportation formation, then it made sense. But what made people puzzled was, Lu Yi actually left a teleportation array here. When did he do it? Ever since he left Tianji City, he had been on the run. Obviously, it was impossible for him to have left it behind this time. Therefore, it could only have been left behind by him in the past. No matter when he did it, his cultivation is not high now. Even if he left a teleportation formation behind, the distance he can teleport to can't be too far. Right now, he must be within 300 miles. As a result, the myriad Devil Ridge cultivators who had rushed and quickly retreated, and news spread out. Many myriad Devil Ridge cultivators were mobilized to search for Lu Yi, within a radius of 150 kilometers. At the same time, in another hidden place, Lu Ye's expression was complicated. Those myriad Devil Ridge cultivators thought that the teleportation formation in the belly of the mountain was left behind by him, but in reality, it was not. This was also the reason why Lu Yi had been so shocked. He had always thought that in the entire Nine States world, he was the only Cloud River tier cultivator who could set up something like a teleportation formation. Only today did he realize that he had been too arrogant. In the Cloud River tier, he was not the only one who could set up a teleportation formation. There were others. The Nine States world was vast and there were many capable people in the world. It looked like he was still sitting in a well, looking at the sky as if it were the vastness of the well. Lu Yi did not feel the frustration of having his exclusive item shine in the hands of others. Instead, he was very excited. After relieving the discomfort caused by the teleportation formation, he hurriedly looked at the mysterious woman beside him. Fellow cultivator, that teleportation formation, I didn't set it up. The mysterious woman seemed to know what he wanted to ask, and she answered before he could finish his sentence. Then, I don't know who set it up either. You don't need to ask. Lu Yi choked. This was the first time he had met such a woman. Moreover, she did not know who set up the teleportation formation. What was she talking about? If she did not know, why would she bring him to that place and use the teleportation formation to escape? Lu Yi subconsciously felt that this mysterious woman did not want to tell him too much. This was very strange. She had come out of her own accord to save him, and she had even exposed an extremely hidden location. However, her attitude toward him could not be considered warm. What was she planning? Moreover, this mysterious woman gave Lu Yi a feeling of superiority. He could not help but feel that he was not facing a cultivator of the same generation as him. Instead, he felt as if he were facing a senior at the True Lake tier or even the Spirit Sea tier. Lu Yi suppressed some of the doubts in his heart, and said, "Thank you for your help this time. May I ask for your name?" "I was only following orders. You don't need to know my name," the mysterious woman said as she looked around. By the looks of it, it seemed that she had also come to this place for the first time. This caused Lu Yi to vaguely believe her words. However, the woman's words undoubtedly caused Lu Yi to be puzzled. Following orders? Whose order was it? Since she had saved him, she must have thought highly of him or wanted to be on good terms with him. Why did she have to hide it like this? Not only did she not report her name, but she also covered her face. This caused Lu Yi to be confused. Although he did not need to repay the kindness of saving his life with his body, Lu Yi at least wanted to know who this kindness came from. The woman had already turned and walked in a direction. This was a cave. It was dark but not humid. The space was also much more spacious than the belly of the mountain. In the quiet environment, although the sound of footsteps was light, it was still clear and audible. Lu Yi followed behind the woman. He had many questions to ask, but the other party's attitude was cold. Obviously, it was useless to ask. Not long after, the two of them arrived at the bottom of the cave. The mysterious woman stood still and looked at Lu Yi. "It's time for you to return to the Nine States. Now, many people in the Myriad Devil Ridge are looking for you. Once you show yourself, you will be hunted down endlessly. So, returning to the Nine States is the safest." Lu Yi naturally did not want to return to the Nine Regions. If he wanted to return, he would have done so long ago. The mysterious woman did not know his methods and thought that he had been hunted to a dead end. In fact, although the situation was dangerous, it was still under control. Moreover, at this place, even if he wanted to return to the Nine Regions, he could not. But soon Lu Ye's expression froze. This was because not far in front of them, a pillar of heaven's secret stood quietly. There was actually a Tianji pillar here. This was not the Tianji Business Alliance, nor was it a spiritual land. For a Tianji pillar to be hidden in such a secluded place, it was obviously used to deal with dangerous situations such as now. First, there was a teleportation formation, then there was a Tianji pillar. Lu Yi really wanted to know who was secretly helping him. The mysterious woman said that she was following orders. Who was the mastermind behind this? What was their purpose? The locations of the teleportation formations had been exposed. Now the Tianji pillar was exposed in front of him. The other party had paid such a huge price but had no intention of revealing his identity. What exactly were they plotting? Why are you in a daze? The mysterious woman could not help but urge Lu Yi when she saw him standing there in a daze. No. What? Chapter 669. The mysterious woman couldn't care less about forcing things. Seeing that Lu Yi wasn't willing to comply, she snorted coldly and flicked her sword, sending a sky full of sword chi towards Lu Yi. Lu Ye's heart's eye secret technique was pushed to the extreme at this moment. The mountain ascending saber in his hand continuously slashed and slashed. The crisp sounds of sword and saber colliding rang out continuously. He was overwhelmed with shock. This woman's strength was a little too strong. He had killed an 8th Order Cloud River Realm cultivator before. Although he had Yi's help at that time, even without her, he could still do the same with his own strength. It would just take a longer time and more methods. In other words, the current him was actually qualified to fight against a 9th Order Cloud River Realm cultivator. Even if he couldn't win, he could still hold on for a while. But in front of this mysterious woman, Lu Yi found that all his efforts were in vain. Faced with her storm-like attacks, it took less than 10 breaths for his defenses to crumble layer by layer. She was obviously not using her full strength. This woman was a sword cultivator. The strongest means of sword cultivators were flying swords, not close combat like this. The sharp sword chi shattered and Lu Yi froze in place. The sharp sword was pressed against his forehead. He could feel the cold touch and a faint wet feeling flowing down his forehead. He couldn't see the woman's expression under the mask, but Lu Yi could feel her cold aura. Return to the 9 states, the woman threatened. His skills were inferior, so there was nothing to say. If she really wanted to take his life, he would have died just now. If he continued to be stubborn, he might really be knocked out and brought back to the 9 states. It was better to obediently submit. At most, the trip to the 100 Formation Tower would be delayed by a month. But before Lu Yi could nod in agreement, the woman suddenly groaned. She couldn't even hold the sword in her hand steadily. Her aura became extremely chaotic at this moment. She hurriedly took a few steps back, distancing herself from Lu Yi, as if she was afraid of accidentally injuring him. What's wrong? Lu Yi frowned and asked. The mysterious woman didn't answer, but the next scene left Lu Yi dumbfounded. It was as if an invisible seal had been broken, and the woman's chaotic aura continued to rise. In the blink of an eye, she had broken through the level of a Cloud River tier cultivator. This scene was so familiar that Lu Yi couldn't help but recall the scene he encountered in the Heavenly Secret Commerce Alliance a few days ago. That day, when he was queuing up in the Heavenly Secret Merchant Alliance's Heavenly Secret Hall, he was ambushed by a few myriad Devil Ridge cultivators. In the end, a steward of the Heavenly Secret Merchant Alliance suddenly attacked and killed those people with lightning speed. The steward's situation at that time was exactly the same as the woman's. Someone who seemed to be in the Cloud River tier suddenly burst forth with the aura and strength of a true lake tier. This mysterious woman wasn't a cultivator at the Cloud River tier. Instead, she was at the Cloud River tier. You're from the Tianji Business Alliance? Lu Yi asked in surprise. As far as he knew, only the members of the Heavenly Mystery Business Alliance had such a bizarre ability. They were able to enter the battlefield of the Heavenly Mystery tier, with a cultivation level that surpassed the Cloud River tier. Moreover, they were able to erupt with their true power in a short period of time. Return to the 9 regions. The woman warned Lu Yi through gritted teeth. Her voice was filled with difficulty, as if she was resisting something. After she finished speaking, the space around her suddenly distorted and she disappeared. If it weren't for the unique fragrance lingering at the tip of his nose, Lu Yi would most likely have thought that the experience just now was just an illusion. What's going on? Lu Yi was truly at a loss. Thinking back to everything that had happened since he met this mysterious woman, there was a sense of strangeness. She suddenly appeared and opened a gap in the encirclement for him, allowing him to escape. Immediately afterward, she led him to a hidden cave. There was still a teleportation formation left there. Through that teleportation formation they arrived here. There was also the heavenly secret pillar that had been left behind long ago. Regardless of whether it was the teleportation formation or the heavenly secret pillar, neither of them were methods that ordinary people could possess. The former required a powerful formation Dao attainment, while the latter required a huge amount of capital. The mysterious woman's attitude towards him was also neither warm nor cold. In fact, there were many times when she was impatient. This was somewhat contradictory to her actions of risking her life to save Lu Yi. However, she also said that she was only following orders. As for whose orders she was following, Lu Yi had no idea. Faintly, Lu Yi felt that he seemed to have touched upon something that he had never thought of before. The complexity of this matter far exceeded his imagination. It was not something that a fifth-order Cloud River Realm cultivator like him should be able to come into contact with. Looking at the place where the woman disappeared, Lu Yi frowned. It was only now that he suddenly realized a problem. That woman might not be from the Heavenly Secret Commerce Alliance. The Heavenly Secret Commerce Alliance had never interfered in the struggles and grievances of cultivators. That was why they could maintain a transcendent status in the entire 9 regions. Perhaps the Shadow of Heaven's secret was part of this. It was because of Heaven's secret that they were able to possess abilities that other cultivators did not possess. For example, entering the Cloud River battlefield with a cultivation that surpassed the Cloud River realm allowed them to display their true strength for a short period of time. If that woman was from the Heavenly Secret Commerce Alliance, she would not have come to save him. Otherwise, she would have broken the neutral position that the Heavenly Secret Commerce Alliance had always maintained and would be punished by Heaven's Secret. Was there anyone in this world who was not from the Heavenly Secret Commerce Alliance who could use such means? Furthermore, from the clues that Lu Yi had obtained, there was an organization behind this woman. The teleportation array from before and the heavenly secret pillar in front of him were all the handiwork of this organization. Only a certain organization could have such a strong foundation. What kind of mysterious organization was this? The woman wore a mask to conceal her appearance. Obviously, she was afraid of being recognized. If that was the case, she should be quite famous. Once her true appearance was exposed, it would be very easy for others to find out. Lu Yi was not sure how high her cultivation was. At the very least, she was at the True Lake realm. As for her final disappearance, most likely, she had used some special method to suppress her own cultivation level and enter the battlefield of the Clouds River. However, this method had a time limit, or perhaps she could not use too much power. Otherwise, it would lose its effect. And once she possessed power that surpassed the Cloud River tier, she would be rejected by the battlefield of the Clouds River and be sent out of the battlefield of the Clouds River. This was different from the situation of the manager of the Heavenly Secret Commerce Alliance. After that manager revealed the strength of the True Lake realm, he easily suppressed his cultivation to the Cloud River 9th Order. However, the mysterious woman could not. This was also the main reason why Lu Yi determined that she was not from the Heavenly Secret Commerce Alliance. In this cultivation world, there seemed to be many things that low-level cultivators could not come into contact with or even dare to imagine. Everyone said that only Cloud River realm cultivators could enter the Cloud River battlefield. No other cultivators could enter. However, in less than half a month, Lu Yi had already seen 2 cultivators that surpassed the Cloud River realm. No wonder he had always felt that the mysterious woman was ridiculously strong. It turned out that her foundation was far beyond the Cloud River realm. However, the other party had undoubtedly taken some risks by coming to save him. No matter how strong her foundation was in the end, she could only use the techniques of the Cloud River tier on this battlefield of the Cloud River tier. Chapter 670. In the hidden cave, Lu Yi refined the spirit pill's medicinal efficacies to restore his body, while he checked his current location. After a while he furrowed his brow. There was something wrong with his current location. He was picked up by the mysterious woman near the Pai River. Then, the two of them flew as fast as lightning and entered a hidden cave. With the help of a transmission array, they were transported here. He remembered his previous location very clearly. What made him feel that something was wrong was the distance. The previous location was more than 1,500 kilometers away from here. Even if he counted the distance he and the mysterious woman flew across, the remaining distance was more than 1,000 kilometers. In other words, the previous transmission array was more than 1,000 kilometers away from here. He was greatly shocked. He could also set up teleportation arrays himself. In the beginning, the teleportation arrays he set up could only teleport a limited distance. However, as his attainments in array Dao gradually increased, and his cultivation level gradually increased, the teleportation arrays he set up could teleport a greater distance. He was now a 5th-order Cloud River Realm cultivator, and the transmission arrays he set up had a range of about 300 kilometers. He had made some calculations before. Even if he reached the 9th-order Cloud River Realm in the future, the transmission arrays he set up would not exceed 600 kilometers. Any further and the transmission arrays would not be able to respond to each other. But the transmission arrays left behind by the mysterious organization in the Cloud River battlefield could actually cover a distance of 1,000 kilometers. This undoubtedly meant that the person who set up the transmission arrays had a much higher attainment in the Tao of arrays than he did. After pondering for a while, Lu Yi came to a realization. Naturally, an ordinary Cloud River Realm cultivator would not have such an ability, but since the organization could let the mysterious woman, a cultivator above the Cloud River Realm, enter the Cloud River battlefield, they could naturally let others enter. For example, a true Lake Realm array cultivator, or even a Spirit Sea Realm array cultivator. If such a powerful array cultivator set up a transmission array, it would not be surprising that it could cover a distance of 1,000 kilometers. This organization should have left these hidden places in the Cloud River battlefield for emergency purposes. Although Lu Yi had only come into contact with 2 of them, it was obvious that there were more than 2 such hidden strongholds. It seemed that the scale of this mysterious organization was much larger than previously thought. Lu Yi could not be bothered to find out the purpose of this mysterious organization. The transmission arrays they set up piqued his interest. In this way, he wouldn't have to worry about his own situation. Those people from the Myriad Devil Ridge should be able to guess that he had used the teleportation array to escape. However, according to their knowledge, the teleportation array he had set up could only span 300 to 400 miles. Therefore, they should have used the location where he had disappeared as the center to search for him within 300 to 400 miles. Who would have thought that he was thousands of miles away? This was undoubtedly good news for Lu Yi. A moment later, Lu Yi returned to the place where he had first appeared. He found the teleportation portal and poured his spiritual energy into it to examine it carefully. Regardless of who created this formation, since it was left behind for the cultivators of the same organization to use in an emergency, there shouldn't be too many restrictions when activating it. To put it simply, it could be activated by anyone who injected spiritual energy into it. This made it easier for Lu Yi to pry into the mysteries of this array formation. After studying it for a while, Lu Yi soon found that there were some subtle differences between this array and the teleportation array he had set up. Even the void spirit pattern at the core was somewhat different from what he had learned in the book. In fact, it wasn't just the void spirit pattern. He had learned many spirit patterns from books, such as Sharpness and Defense, which were all in Madame Yun's book collection. However, there were some differences between them and the spirit patterns on the talent tree. Spirit patterns weren't unchanging. The subtle changes in yin and yang would often affect the overall effect of a spirit pattern. Therefore, there were often several construction methods for the same spirit pattern, and the power that could be exerted was also different. However, Lu Yi had done research before. No matter what the construction of the spirit patterns recorded in the book looked like, the spirit patterns on the talent tree displayed the greatest power and were the most convenient to construct. The spirit patterns on the talent tree seemed to condense all the essence of each spirit pattern together and use the most reasonable construction method to exert the strongest power. Moreover, Lu Yi didn't need to spend much effort to execute it. With a thought, the spirit patterns would naturally be successfully constructed, reaching a level where they could be activated at will. The void spirit pattern on the teleportation array in front of him gave Lu Yi a lot of gains, but more gains were in the method of setting up the teleportation array. The other party's attainments in the array Dao were much higher than Lu Ye's. This kind of opportunity to directly study a formation cultivator setting up a formation was rare, and he could often learn a lot from it. While Lu Yi was engrossed in studying the teleportation array, the cultivators from the Myriad Demon's Ridge outside had already dug 3 feet into the ground. However, they had already searched the area within a radius of several hundred li. Yet, there was still no trace of Lu Yi. Seeing that made them both furious and helpless. Many people dispersed, but there were still many who didn't give up and continued to search for Lu Ye's whereabouts. At the same time, a large amount of news spread out. It could be said that in the current Cloud River battlefield, as long as there were Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators, there would be people paying attention to Lu Ye's traces. In principle, as long as Lu Yi dared to appear, even if he wore a mask, it would be useless. However, under such an atmosphere, there was still no news of Lu Yi. It was as if he had already left the Cloud River battlefield. Time flew by, and 3 days later, in the cave where he was hiding, Lu Yi let out a long breath and a thoughtful look flashed in his eyes. 3 days was enough for him to completely recover. He even replenished the spirit power in his spirit storage ring. During this time, he had been studying the teleportation array here. He had gained a lot. Not to mention other things, if he were to arrange a teleportation array at this moment, the teleportation distance should be increased by a few dozen kilometers. A few dozen kilometers should not be underestimated. For a Cloud River cultivator, a few dozen kilometers was indeed nothing. If they flew at full speed, they could cross it in the time it took to brew a cup of tea. However, such a breakthrough in the teleportation array undoubtedly meant that Lu Ye's attainments in spirit arrays had improved. Moreover, he was currently at the 5th order Cloud River realm. In the future, his cultivation would improve. If he could gain something from this trip to the 100 array tower, his attainments in spirit arrays would also improve greatly. At that time, the teleportation array he arranged would be even more powerful. The only flaw was the experience. The experience of the teleportation array and the teleportation of the Heaven's Fate Pillar were two different things. The latter was silent, and the teleportation was completed before the cultivators could react. It was extremely stable and comfortable. However, the experience of the teleportation array was not so wonderful. When Lu Yi first arranged the teleportation array, he felt like he was stepping on air and falling into a bottomless abyss. After the teleportation was completed, he would feel dizzy. He originally thought that it was because his skills were not good enough, but after experiencing the teleportation array set up by others, he realized that it was not his skills that were not good enough, but the teleportation array was just like that. The further the teleportation distance, the worse the experience seemed to be. Firstly, Huitian Valley was now guarded by the wolf pack, and there were many formations left by Lu Yi. It was useless for the Myriad Demon's Ridge to go there. If they launched a large-scale attack, Li Baxian and the others could escape back to the 9 provinces at any time because of the Tianji pillar that Lu Yi left in the spiritual land. Secondly, when Lu Yi left Huitian Valley, he said that if anyone dared to break into his spiritual land, he would immediately kill his way into the spiritual stream battlefield and destroy their sect's encampment. No matter how unwilling the Myriad Demon's Ridge was, they did not dare to rashly attack Huitian Valley before Lu Yi died. Otherwise, they would only bring disaster to their own sections. It was not the first time that the sect destroying Yi had destroyed other sects' encampment on the spiritual stream battlefield. Who would not be afraid? To be continued. Chapter 671. After a simple conversation, Li Baxian learnt about Lu Ye's plan. His junior brother was skilled in formations, so it was only natural for him to go to the 100 Formation Tower to study. It was possible to say that all formation cultivators in the 9 provinces would do everything they could to visit the 100 Formation Tower when they reached the Cloud River realm. In particular, formation cultivators from the Myriad Demon Ridge would do so. The first section of the 100 Formation Tower was in the Mist Province's Heaven Expanse sect. It was the sect's treasure, so they could not enter it. However, the section in the Cloud River battlefield did not belong to anyone. Li Baxian did not say much after learning about Lu Ye's plan. He only warned him to be careful. After ending the conversation, Lu Yi continued on his way. Around half a day later, as Lu Yi flew on his artifact, he suddenly received another message from the battlefield imprint. He checked it in a hurry and discovered that it was actually his fourth senior brother who had contacted him. This was quite rare. His fourth senior brother would not disturb him so frequently. Junior brother, I've asked around about the 100 Formation Tower. The situation there is rather complicated, so I'll tell you about it. Afterwards he received large chunks of information. Through the information, Lu Yi felt warmth in his heart. He could sense his fourth senior brother's concern. Actually, he already knew about all the information Li Baxian had sent him. He had been in the Cloud River battlefield for so long. Although he had never set off for the 100 Formation Tower, he still paid attention to the situation there. This was because there would be a day when he set off for the 100 Formation Tower. There was nothing wrong with making preparations beforehand. Just like his fourth senior brother had said, the situation there was rather complicated. If he barged in recklessly without knowing anything, it was very likely for him to suffer. Especially when he was at the Tianji Merchant Union a few days ago. He had specially bought a set of information on the 100 Formation Pagoda from the Tianji Merchant Union. It was undoubtedly much more detailed than what Li Baxian had scouted out on the spot. The information even included the experiences of many array cultivators who had challenged the 100 Formation Pagoda. For this, Lu Yi had spent a large amount of spiritual stones. Of course, someone as wealthy as him would not care about mere spiritual stones. They were all spoils of battle anyway. But he didn't expose him. After Li Baxian told him all the information he knew, he warned, with your ability, you'll definitely be able to obtain a lot of benefits in the 100 Formation Pagoda. But you must not be greedy and advance rashly. At that time, even though the Cloud River battlefield was huge, there would not be many who could truly pose a threat to his life. A few days passed in the blink of an eye. When a well-ordered city appeared in his field of vision, Lu Yi knew that he had arrived at his destination. 100 Array City. In the entire Cloud River battlefield, there were very few cities with their own names. In the Cloud River battlefield, most cities were named after Heaven's Fate City and had different numbers to distinguish them. However, there were also some special cities that had their own names. The name 100 Array City was obviously derived from the 100 Array Pagoda. The distance between the two places was only a mere 15 kilometers. To a cultivator of the Cloud River tier, this distance was nothing. Many formation cultivators lived in the 100 Formation City all year round, and would occasionally head to the 100 Formation Pagoda to cultivate Formation Dao. In the beginning there was no city here. However, because of the 100 Array Pagoda, many cultivators would gather here from all over the Cloud River battlefield. Although array cultivators were not a particularly big sect, compared to the smaller sects like Beast Tamer and Yenshur, it was still quite big. No matter what, every sect would have some array cultivators who were responsible for setting up and maintaining spirit arrays. There were also many rogue cultivators who did not belong to any sect, and there was no lack of them who cultivated array Dao. As a result, there were actually many array cultivators in the 9 prefectures. With so many array cultivators gathering at the 100 Array Pagoda, it naturally brought a lot of people to this place. No matter where it was, as long as there was a gathering of people, it would slowly grow and 100 Array City was born. When the scale of this place grew to a certain extent, even the Heaven's Fate Commerce Alliance moved in. It could be said that 100 Array City was a city whose purpose was to serve array cultivators. 80% of everything in the city was related to array Dao. There was a reason why the 100 Array Pagoda was located 30 kilometers away from 100 Array City, and not in the city itself. Many array cultivators would stay outside the 100 Array Pagoda for long periods of time to exchange pointers with fellow array cultivators. Or when someone challenged the pagoda, they would trigger the pagoda's resonance and gain some enlightenment and benefits. Therefore, it was not suitable to be too lively near the 100 Array Pagoda. As a result, 100 Array City was naturally not formed around the 100 Array Pagoda. Those array cultivators would not agree to such a thing. Lu Ye's goal was not 100 Array City, so he naturally did not need to enter the city. However, if he wanted to enter the 100 Array Pagoda, he had to follow some rules. As for who set these rules, it was impossible to verify because these were rules passed down from generation to generation of array cultivators. Of course, if one was truly capable, they could ignore these rules. However, this would ultimately make things very troublesome. Therefore, when he saw 100 Array City, Lu Ye's gaze passed over the city and looked at a broken pagoda 30 kilometers away. He had once been to the Sky Expanse sect and seen the first section of the 100 Array Pagoda. Looking at it now, the second section seemed to fit perfectly with the first section. If someone could bring this section out of the Cloud River battlefield and place it in the Sky Expanse sect, it would definitely restore 60 to 70% of the 100 Array Pagoda's glory. Unfortunately, no one had been able to do so since ancient times. The second section of the 100 Array Pagoda was the middle section. It had no base at the bottom and no roof at the top. At first glance, it looked neither fish nor fowl. However, there were obvious traces left behind by the erosion of time. The entire pagoda was simple and unadorned. Lu Yi flew over on his weapon and landed 10 kilometers away from 100 Array City. Looking around, there was nothing but a few crooked trees. The intertwining branches of the trees vaguely formed an arched space. If one stood in front of the arched space and looked straight ahead, they would be able to clearly see the 100 Array Pagoda. The arched space formed by the intertwining branches was like a door to the 100 Array Pagoda. In fact, that was indeed the case. One could safely reach the 100 Array Pagoda by passing through the branches and walking straight ahead. If one were to deviate from the path, it would not be a pleasant experience. Because with the 100 Array Pagoda as the center, there was no place within a 30-kilometer radius that was absolutely safe. Those places were filled with all sorts of formations left behind by cultivators from different eras. Those seemingly inconspicuous places might contain hidden dangers. Since ancient times, generations of formation cultivators had refined their formations here. Almost every one of them had more or less gained something. Sometimes they would spar with others, and the sparring between formation cultivators was nothing more than setting up and breaking formations. Many formations had been left behind in this manner. Some people might have other intentions and deliberately set up formations in certain places, leaving behind difficult problems to test the formation cultivators who came later. Therefore, after generations of inheritance, there were countless hidden formations within a 30-kilometer radius of the 100 Array Pagoda. One might even trigger a formation after taking a few steps. This was also the reason why Lu Yi was willing to follow the rules. Of course, he could fly directly to the 100 Array Pagoda from any direction, but who knew if he would encounter a flight restriction formation? Once he encountered one, he would definitely fall. At that time, if he wanted to advance, he would have to break through the formations one by one. It was not as if such a thing had never happened before. There was once an arrogant formation cultivator who did not take the normal path and ended up trapped outside the 100 Array Pagoda. In the end, not even his bones could be found. In the Cloud River tier, Lu Yi believed that there was probably no one who could surpass him in terms of formations. However, formations were not something that could be looked down on just because one had a high level of attainment in formations. Some formations had existed for a very long time and accumulated spiritual power over the years. Even if it was a very ordinary formation, once triggered, it would erupt with terrifying power. To be continued. Chapter 672. Within a 30-kilometer radius of the 100 Formation Pagoda, there were many hidden formations and dangers. There was only one path that was absolutely safe, and that was to pass through the arched space formed by the branches of several crooked trees. Only then could one safely reach the 100 Formation Pagoda. When entering it was this path, but when leaving it was another path. When Lu Ye's figure landed, there were two people preparing to enter. The slight movement caused them to glance at Lu Yi, but they didn't pay too much attention to him. At that moment, Lu Yi put his mask back on and put the amber back into his spirit beast pouch. Although this kind of concealment wasn't very useful, it was still better than nothing. The two people had already passed through the arched space. As they walked, they could hear the sound of their conversation. The two were clearly formation cultivators. At that moment they were discussing how to set up a formation. They each had their own opinions, and both felt that their method was more effective. Their debate was very intense. Although Lu Yi cultivated the Tao of formations, after such a long time, he didn't have any similar experience apart from the time he exchanged pointers with the Heaven Expanse Sex Zhao Li at the Spirit Stream battlefield. He strolled behind the two and listened to their conversation. For a moment he felt that it was rather interesting. However, the two clearly weren't very skilled in the Tao of formations. From Lu Ye's point of view, their debate was like an adult watching a child quarrel. He suddenly realized that in the Tao of formations, he was already far ahead of other cultivators of the same level. After walking for several kilometers, one of the shorter formation cultivators suddenly fell silent and revealed a pensive expression. When his companion saw this, he struck while the iron was hot and said, "It seems fellow Taoist Qi has realized something. In the end, my method of setting up formations is more effective, right?" His companion's silence caused him to misunderstand. For a moment, he was immensely pleased with himself, thinking that his companion agreed with him. The cultivator surnamed Qi didn't say anything. Instead, he turned around and glanced at Lu Yi. Then, he whispered to the cultivator surnamed Yu, "Fellow Taoist Yu, did you notice that person just now?" "What?" The cultivator surnamed Yu didn't understand. "The person behind us. Don't look back." "What about him?" The cultivator surnamed Yu's mysterious behavior made him nervous. "Think about it carefully, doesn't he look like a person?" The cultivator surnamed Yu reminded. He had been preoccupied with discussing array formations with the cultivator surnamed Qi, so even when he saw Lu Yi at the entrance, he didn't pay much attention. He was stunned to see that Lu Yi was already less than a meter away from him. In his field of vision, he saw a fiery red saber slash at him. Then he felt his arm go numb and his severed arm fly into the air. "Ah!" A cry of alarm rang out. The cultivator surnamed Qi's face changed greatly and he staggered back. However, Lu Yi had already slashed out a second time. This time, the saber brushed past the body of the opponent's halberd and slashed at his neck. Immediately, he passed by the cultivator surnamed Qi's figure and rushed towards the cultivator surnamed Yu. At that moment, the cultivator surnamed Yu had just used his golden arrow technique. Seeing Lu Yi closing in on him like a ferocious tiger, the terrifying pressure he felt made it difficult for him to breathe. He immediately felt that something was wrong. Without even thinking, he moved his feet and directly floated back. Lu Ye's long saber slashed down, and the support of the Twin Peaks sharp spirit inscriptions directly broke through the person's protective spiritual energy, leaving a huge wound on his chest. However, this person was also sent flying out of the safe passage under the powerful impact. It was as if he had broken through an invisible barrier. When the ripples spread out, the man's figure suddenly disappeared. Lu Yi stopped and hesitated for a moment, but he didn't pursue. The place where the cultivator had fallen was covered by a spirit array. He didn't know when or by which spirit array cultivator. Before knowing the details of this spirit array, rashly rushing in was not a wise move. The other party had taken a blow from him and had fallen into an inexplicable spirit array. Everything pointed to a disaster. Even if he had the strength to break the spirit array, he might not be able to find his way back. Lu Yi withdrew his saber. Only now did the corpse of the cultivator surnamed Qi fall to the ground. Blood flowed out and dyed the ground red. Lu Yi stepped forward and collected the cultivator's storage bag and spirit artifact. Then he kicked the corpse out of the safe passage. The moment the corpse fell to the ground, an explosion rang out. A huge heat wave, violent sound, and dazzling flames all indicated that an explosion array had been activated. Lu Yi was secretly shocked. Although he knew a lot about the outside of the 100 Formation Tower from the intelligence of the Heavenly Secret Commerce Alliance and knew that it wasn't safe outside the safe passage, he didn't expect the situation to be so serious. There were truly hidden array formations everywhere. The power of this explosion spirit design was much greater than the one he had set up. This didn't mean that the person who arranged this array had a higher level of attainment in the Tao of arrays than him. It was just that this array had existed for a long time and had accumulated a huge amount of energy. Now that it had suddenly erupted, it was naturally terrifying. Continuing forward, only the red blood left on the ground showed that a great battle had just broken out here. The two cultivators thought that their cultivation was higher than Lu Ye's, and that they had joined forces to launch a sneak attack. Lu Yi had even killed an 8th order cultivator before. A 7th order and a 6th order cultivator weren't enough to deal with him now. After walking for another 10 kilometers, they finally arrived in front of the 100 Formation Tower. Here there was a relatively safe area. With the 100 Formation Tower as the center, the area within 1,000 meters was absolutely safe. Lu Yi looked around and saw that quite a few cultivators had gathered. All of them were formation cultivators. What made Lu Yi feel at ease was that some of them were wearing masks like him. This made him look less unconventional. There was an unspoken rule in the 100 Formation Pagoda. Regardless of one's background, everyone who came here was a formation cultivator. Fighting was not allowed in this area, because many array cultivators would cultivate here and comprehend the mysteries of the Tao of arrays. If there was a fight, it would definitely affect them. Not only was there no fighting here, even the sound of talking was suppressed to the extreme. Therefore, although there were many array cultivators gathered here, the atmosphere was very peaceful. Some array cultivators sat alone with their eyes closed as they cultivated. There were also array cultivators who sat in pairs and discussed the mysteries of arrays. There were even some who used arrays as a foundation to compare notes. Most people did not know the origins of others. Perhaps one of the two who were discussing the mysteries of arrays was from the Myriad Devil Ridge, while the other was from the Grand Heaven Alliance. Compared to the environment of the Cloudy River battlefield, this was simply a paradise. When Lu Yi had advanced to the Cloudy River realm, and was preparing to enter the Cloudy River battlefield, second senior sister Shui Yuan had told him that the situation in the Cloudy River battlefield was much more complicated than the Spirit Stream battlefield. Because there was no such thing as a sect encampment, cultivators in the Cloudy River battlefield generally did not know each other's factions unless they knew each other. As a result, cultivators from both factions often had the opportunity to coexist peacefully. Sometimes they could even sincerely cooperate. But to Lu Yi, it seemed that all that awaited him was being targeted and hunted down. There was no end to it. Feeling the peace and tranquility here, Lu Yi could not help but sigh inwardly. When would he be able to enjoy the treatment of an ordinary cultivator? However, he also knew that this was ultimately an extravagant hope. His name was already on the list of the major sects of the Myriad Devil Ridge. Countless pairs of eyes were staring at him. When people from the Myriad Devil Ridge encountered him, their only thought was to kill him or call for help to kill him. 7017K. When Lu Yi looked over, he saw an array cultivator walking in excitedly before disappearing. Another array cultivator suddenly appeared in front of the entrance. His face was extremely pale, as if he had been severely injured. His body was somewhat unstable. He spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. A cultivator who knew this person cried out in alarm and hurriedly went forward to help this person to the side and feed him a healing spirit pill. Challenging the 100 Formation Pagoda was extremely dangerous. Every level of the pagoda had a different test, but overall, the test was divided into 3 types. Breaking the formation, setting up the formation, and repairing the formation. Breaking the array meant breaking the array inside the 100 Formation Pagoda. Setting up a formation was a requirement given by the 100 Formation Pagoda, and one had to set up a formation that matched the requirement. As for fixing a formation, it was an extension of setting up a formation. An incomplete or flawed formation would appear in the 100 Formation Pagoda for the challenger to fix it. Don't think that fixing a formation was easy. There was a saying among formation cultivators: it was better to set up 10 formations than fix one. That was because setting up a formation was something one had to do personally right from the start. Everything would be done according to one's train of thought. However, repairing a formation was different. Only God knew how many hidden loopholes and flaws there were in a semi-finished formation. To repair these loopholes and flaws required a lot more time and energy than setting up a formation. While not destroying the foundation of the original formation, one also had to cater to the various ideas of the original formation. In this way, the difficulty was much higher than simply setting up a formation. If the test of the 100 formation pagoda was setting up a formation, there was basically no danger. That was because even if one failed to set up a formation, they would only be sent out by the 100 formation pagoda. However, it was dangerous to break or fix a formation. If something went wrong, the formation would be activated. Even if one didn't die, they would be injured. Every year, a large number of formation cultivators came to challenge the 100 formation pagoda. Many formation cultivators who were confident in their abilities died inside. That was only the danger of the test. Even if one passed the test, there was still a certain amount of danger. That was because after passing the test, the 100 formation pagoda would bestow a reward. It was a kind of reward that allowed the cultivator to receive a large amount of information regarding formation Dao in a short period of time. The effect was similar to Lu Yi checking the information on the talent tree's leaf. However, it was even more violent. When a large amount of information entered one's mind, one's soul would feel like it was being torn apart. The better one performed in the 100 formation pagoda, the more rewards one would receive. The pain of being torn apart would be even more intense. Lu Yi had relied on soul water to survive last time. Therefore, ever since he entered the Cloud River battlefield, he had been keeping an eye out for treasures that could restore his soul. Unfortunately, he hadn't gained anything until he accidentally entered the Immortal Essence City and obtained a large amount of soul water. Only then did he enter the 100 formation pagoda. Of course, the benefits an ordinary formation cultivator would receive in the 100 formation pagoda were not that exaggerated. Lu Ye's performance last time was too outstanding and the benefits he received were too great. This caused him to bear an unprecedented amount of pressure. Under normal circumstances, cultivators who challenged the pagoda would be able to safely endure the benefits they received after passing the test, and increase their attainments in formation Dao. This formation cultivator who had suddenly fainted did not have any external injuries. Instead, his face was pale. This meant that he had exhausted too much of his mental strength. This person had undoubtedly gained a lot in the 100 formation pagoda. The benefits he received had already exceeded his limits, causing him to suddenly spit out blood and faint. However, after waking up, this person's attainments in formation Dao would definitely improve significantly. This was a good thing. All sorts of thoughts flashed through Lu Ye's mind. Just as he was about to step into the 100 formation pagoda, he suddenly felt a strange rhythm. This formless rhythm was like a formless wind that radiated in all directions. In the blink of an eye, it had spread over dozens of miles. Outside the 100 formation pagoda, everyone stopped what they were doing and looked at the pagoda in surprise. Someone exclaimed, "It's resonating, it's resonating." It was as if some treasure had fallen from the sky. Although no treasure had fallen from the sky, the resonance of the 100 formation pagoda was a blessing from the heavens to all the formation cultivators who lingered here. Because of this rhythm, formation cultivators would be able to comprehend the mysteries of formation Dao more easily. Perhaps there were many things that they did not understand in the past that they could suddenly be enlightened at this moment and increase their attainments in formation Dao. It was not easy to trigger the resonance of the 100 formation pagoda. One had to achieve good results in the pagoda's tests. Lu Yi had triggered the resonance of the 100 formation pagoda time and time again in the Sky Expanse sect, allowing the formation cultivators of the Sky Expanse sect to benefit greatly. At the bottom, there was only a simple entrance. The entrance was pitch black and seemed to be connected to an unknown space. Lu Yi took a few steps forward and arrived at the entrance. Without hesitation, he walked in. His vision blurred and he felt as if he had used the Tianji pillar to teleport. When Lu Yi came back to his senses, he had already appeared in a small space. He looked around and realized that the situation was no different from what he had encountered when he challenged the pagoda previously. This small space was not big. It was only the size of a room. It was completely white all around and there was nothing. On the wall beside him, there was a protruding stone brick. Based on his previous experience and memory, Lu Yi stepped forward and pressed his hand on the stone brick. With a slight force, the stone brick immediately sank into the wall. 7017 K. Chapter 674. As the stone tiles caved in, the surrounding scenery changed. In the blink of an eye, Lu Yi seemed to have traversed countless times and arrived at another place. The surroundings were empty and there was nothing in sight. There was only a light screen visible to the naked eye that enveloped the entire place in a semicircle. The area covered by the light curtain was not small, at least a few miles in radius. Was he trying to break the formation? Lu Yi understood. Generally speaking, if a completed formation appeared in the 100 Formation Pagoda's test, the challenger would have to break it. Lu Yi remembered that his final test in Heaven Expanse X 100 Formation Pagoda was to break a formation as well. Furthermore, it was a defensive formation. It was also because of the experience he gained in the 100 Formation Pagoda that he was able to disregard the defensive formations of the various myriad Devil Ridge encampments as though they were nothing in the Spirit Stream battlefield. He did not expect that the first test of the 100 Formation Pagoda in the Cloud River battlefield would be to break a similar formation as well. Although the scale of this formation was smaller than the previous one, Lu Yi knew that this was not an ordinary test when he saw the thickness of the light screen. If he was not wrong, this formation was much stronger than the defensive formation from the previous time. Thankfully, his attainments in the Tao of formations could not be compared to the past. After such a long time, he had already digested all the benefits he gained from Heaven Expanse X 100 Formation Pagoda. Right now, Lu Ye's attainments in the Tao of formations were several levels higher than before. It was not difficult for him to break a formation as such. He merely needed to expend some effort. He channeled his insight spirit pattern to augment his eyes and looked around, searching for the nodes and flaws of the formation. Before long, he realized that something was amiss. This time round, he was not trying to break a defensive formation, but a trap formation. At first glance, there was almost no difference between the two formations. They appeared to be enveloped by a layer of light screen, but in reality, they were two completely different formations. Outside the defensive formation and inside the trap formation. If he tried to break the formation without understanding the root of it, he would definitely waste a lot of time. Moreover, under Lu Ye's observation, it was clear that there was more than one trapping array here. There were also several killing arrays hidden within the trapping array. These killing arrays were arranged in an extremely exquisite manner. They had to be broken in advance in order to truly break the trapping array. Otherwise, there was a high chance that he would activate the killing formations first if he tried it rashly. This was clearly a compound formation. As expected of the 100 Formation Pagoda of the Cloudy River battlefield, the difficulty of the first step was not something an ordinary array cultivator could withstand. However, under the observation of the spirit inscriptions, the nodes and flaws of these formations could not be hidden. After making sure that he hadn't missed anything, Lu Yi immediately began to act. If one wanted to achieve good results in the 100 Formation Pagoda's test, one had to pass the test in the shortest amount of time. No one knew what the standard was because those who challenged the pagoda had no way of communicating with the outside world. They also didn't know if their actions would resonate with the 100 Formation Pagoda. Therefore, even though the 100 Formation Pagoda had existed since ancient times, no one could conclude the true pattern. Lu Yi didn't know either, but from his previous experience in the tower, he knew that his performance on the previous floor would be the standard for the next floor. In other words, the level of attainments in the Tao of formations he displayed after completing the test on this level would be closely related to the level of attainments in the Tao of formations he displayed before. If he wanted to obtain a good result, he would have to perform even better. Under normal circumstances, this was naturally impossible. A formation cultivator's attainments in the Tao of formations were not that easy to improve. It was also impossible to continuously break through one's limits in a short period of time. However, this was the 100 Formation Pagoda. If one's performance was good enough, the 100 Formation Pagoda would bestow rewards that would increase the formation cultivator's attainments in the Tao of formations. In this way, the impossible would become possible. The difficulty of the 100 Formation Pagoda's test would increase with each level, But if one could obtain a corresponding reward on each level, their attainments in the Tao of Formations would also gradually increase. The rewards obtained from challenging the pagoda would eventually form a snowball-like cycle of conscience. As time passed, Lu Yi broke through the hidden killing formations, leaving only the trapping formation in front of him. At this point, the test was actually not that difficult anymore. The real difficulty of this level's test was the hidden killing formations. Once they were activated, not to mention whether one would be injured or even die, it would definitely affect one's final result. The difficulty was not high, but it was quite troublesome. That was because the trapping formation was not weak. It would take some effort for Lu Yi to break through it. Outside the 100 Formation Pagoda, the formation cultivators were discussing who had triggered the previous resonance. However, there were many formation cultivators entering the 100 Formation Pagoda every day, and some stayed inside for many days. Therefore, such a discussion would not yield any results. That was because even the person challenging the pagoda could not be sure if they had triggered the 100 Formation Pagoda's resonance. However, such a good thing that could only happen once every 3 to 5 months was still something to be excited about. The discussion had yet to yield any results when suddenly, there was a strange rhythm that spread out from the 100 Formation Pagoda. The whispers stopped abruptly. All the formation cultivators instinctively looked in the direction of the 100 Formation Pagoda, their eyes filled with disbelief. The 100 Formation Pagoda had resonated once again. What's going on? Some people looked puzzled while others cried out in alarm. The 100 Formation Pagoda's resonance that could only be encountered once every 3 to 5 months had actually happened twice in such a short period of time today. What kind of person was challenging the pagoda? However, the crowd soon realized that the two resonations were definitely not triggered by the same person. That was because the interval was too short. When array cultivators challenged the tower after passing the test, they would have a period of rest. This period of time would not be too long, but it would not be too short either. It would allow array cultivators to recover their spiritual power, relieve the pressure on their souls, digest the gifts they had received, and prepare for the next test. No matter which formation cultivator it was, they would cherish such a period of rest and would definitely not start the next test before the time limit was up. Today, the 100 Formation Pagoda had resonated twice in less than half an hour. It was obvious that it was not triggered by the same person. In other words, there were actually two formation cultivators who had obtained results that could trigger the pagoda's resonance today. Any formation cultivator who could trigger the pagoda's resonance would have a limitless future. Shock, regret, confusion, and many other emotions were quickly suppressed by the formation cultivators. No matter who triggered the resonance, it was ultimately a good thing for them. Many of them felt that the previous resonance was not enough. Now that there was another resonance so quickly, they might be able to understand some of the mysteries that they did not understand earlier. Therefore, in an instant, the outside of the 100 Formation Pagoda fell silent once more. All the formation cultivators closed their eyes and felt the enlightenment that the formless rhythm had for them. Inside the 100 Formation Pagoda, in a space the size of a small room, Lu Ye's expression was calm as he looked at the ball of fluorescent light descending from the sky. Although it had been a long time since he had seen such a scene, Lu Ye's eyelids twitched instinctively. That was because the rewards from the 100 Formation Pagoda were not that easy to obtain. Especially since he had only spent half an hour to pass the test this time. The benefits contained within should not be small. In other words, the impact on his soul was also huge. However, this was a process that had to be experienced. It was a blessing, not a curse. Gritting his teeth, Lu Yi reached out to grab the ball of fluorescent light. The fluorescent light broke upon contact. As though attracted by an invisible force, the specks of light shuddered slightly before surging towards Lu Ye's head. Lu Yi only felt the specks of light before his eyes as though the entire starry sky was overturning him. The powerful pressure made it difficult for him to breathe. Then, a stifled groan sounded. Lu Ye's entire body trembled as though he was struck by lightning. His face turned pale at a speed visible to the naked eye. His soul seemed to be torn apart by an invisible force. Then, a large amount of array formation information flowed uncontrollably into his soul, and was stirred vigorously. In the process of stirring, his soul continued to shatter. The power of Lu Ye's soul was far beyond that of cultivators of the same level. It had already reached the standard of the true lake stage. With a strong soul, his tolerance was naturally strong. Under normal circumstances, he could ignore the impact on his soul. For example, when he was checking the information on the talent tree's leaf, or when he died during the training in the Mirage, he no longer felt as painful as before. These were the benefits of a strong soul. However, the torment this time was still unbearable. The main reason was that the benefits he had received were too great. Moreover, this method of enlightenment was too barbaric and overbearing. If other cultivators of the Cloud River stage encountered such a thing, even if their soul was not destroyed, they would lose their spiritual intelligence and become mentally retarded. There were also benefits. As a large amount of information flowed uncontrollably into his soul, Lu Ye's understanding of array formation also deepened. His array formation attainments also improved correspondingly. This would bring him more advantages in the upcoming trials of the tower. Amidst the unbearable pain, the taste of blood came from Lu Ye's mouth. This was blood from his teeth being clenched. With trembling hands, he reached into the spirit beast pouch and took out Hupa, who had been inside it all this time. As soon as Hupa appeared, it saw Lu Ye's miserable state and couldn't help but tremble. It immediately became vigilant, thinking that Lu Yi had been attacked. He also hurriedly flashed out of Hupo's body. Soul-cleansing water. Lu Yi growled through clenched teeth. He immediately reacted. Lu Ye's soul had suffered a huge impact. She took out the jade bottle containing soul-cleansing water, dipped her hand into it, and stuffed it into Lu Ye's mouth. The unique taste of soul-cleansing water bloomed in his mouth and spread throughout his body. The extreme pain was instantly suppressed, and the piercing and tearing pain in his soul was slowly soothed. In a short while, Lu Ye's face regained its color. No treasure could compare to the effect of soul-cleansing water in this kind of situation where the soul had suffered a huge impact. Lu Yi let out a long breath. He secretly decided that the next time he accepted a gift from the 100 Formation Tower, he would first release Hupa and E. 7017K. Chapter 675. This is the 100 Formation Pagoda? He looked around in surprise. What rich and pure spiritual energy! The 100 Formation Pagoda's gift was not only the knowledge of formations. After a cultivator passed the test, a large amount of pure and rich heaven and earth spiritual chi would appear. Cultivators could use this place to quickly recover their energy and prepare for the next test. While Lu Ye's soul was overwhelmed by the huge amount of information, a large amount of spiritual energy suddenly emerged in this small space. The small room was almost filled with white fog. Having traveled extensively with Lu Yi, he wasn't someone who hadn't seen the world. She had stayed in both Grade C and Grade A spirit lands. What surprised her was that the density and purity of the spiritual energy here was even more exaggerated than Grade A spirit lands. It was almost to the extent that it could only be obtained by using spirit lots. She tested it and found that her intuition was right. Even if the spiritual energy here wasn't as good as using spirit lots, it wasn't far off. She could quickly absorb it and improve her foundation. Such a cultivation environment could be said to be the dream of any cultivator. Therefore, Yi didn't hesitate at all and hurriedly started cultivating. On the side, the pain in Lu Ye's soul gradually subsided under the effect of the soul-cleansing water. Large amounts of knowledge regarding formations surged in his mind, all of which he had never come into contact with before. However, he wasn't in a hurry to investigate these things. Instead, he first constructed small spirit-gathering funnels on his body. The current him didn't have any difficulty in constructing these small spirit-gathering funnels. It could be said that a small spirit-gathering funnel would take shape with just a thought. As the funnels appeared, a devouring power came from his body and devoured the surrounding spiritual energy. As the number of small spirit-gathering funnels increased, the devouring power also became stronger. In the end, Lu Ye's entire body seemed to have turned into an invisible vortex. One could see with the naked eye that the spiritual energy was constantly flowing in his direction, and then disappearing. Although he had already guessed that the spiritual energy in the 100 Formation Pagoda would be very pure, the results still exceeded Lu Ye's expectations. This kind of cultivation efficiency that was comparable to using spirit lots was definitely what he needed the most now. The strength of his soul far exceeded his physical strength. In the end, it was still a hidden danger. If he could improve his cultivation in the 100 Formation Pagoda this time, he could resolve this hidden danger. The method of constructing small spirit-gathering funnels for cultivation and recovery had helped Lu Yi a lot on many occasions. Just like now. When ordinary formation cultivators came here, even if they passed the test and obtained the rewards, they would have to quickly recover. During this process they had to concentrate and couldn't do anything else, and they wouldn't be able to improve too much in a short period of time, which would affect their performance on the next level, of course. Of the 100 Formation Pagoda, of them. But Lu Yi was different. After the small funnel was completed, he allowed the surrounding spirit mist to enter his body. He could fully immerse himself in comprehending the gifts of the 100 Formation Pagoda. He had more time than other array cultivators to use these gifts to improve his array Dao attainments. His mind was immersed and time passed. Then, at a certain moment, the surrounding spiritual fog suddenly disappeared without a trace of it. He silently estimated that it had been about 6 hours since he entered the 100 Formation Pagoda. This was about the same as the previous Pagoda challenge. Every level of the 100 Formation Pagoda had a time limit of 6 hours. Those who passed the test within this time limit would receive the rewards of the 100 Formation Pagoda. Therefore, the less time one spent in the test, the greater the rewards, and the more time one would have to recover and comprehend. Lu Yi only spent half an hour to break through the first level. He spent the rest of the time reaping the benefits. The river of spirit power in his body had clearly grown stronger. His greatest gain was in the area of formations. That gift was so huge that his spirit couldn't bear it. The benefits it brought to his formation were unimaginable. He naturally couldn't fully comprehend it in less than 6 hours. But even so, it was enough for him to take a step forward in his formation Dao. It was more than enough for him to deal with the next level's test. Lu Yi was very confident in this. Lu Yi didn't need to give any instructions. He had already flashed into Hu Po's body. Hu Po reluctantly walked over to Lu Yi, who grabbed it and stuffed it into the spirit beast pouch. Just as he was done, he couldn't help but feel like he was being transported. He appeared in another small space similar to the previous one. A stone brick protruded from the wall beside him. Time was of the essence. Lu Yi didn't hesitate. He walked up to the brick and pressed it down. As the brick fell, the scenery around him changed. Lu Yi appeared in an extremely spacious area. A dot of fluorescent light suddenly appeared in front of him. He raised his hand and touched it. A message immediately appeared in his mind. The test this time was to set up a formation according to the 100 Formation Pagoda's requirements. The required formation wasn't anything difficult. It was just a spirit-gathering formation. It could be said that the first formation Lu Yi knew how to set up was a spirit-gathering formation. That was because he had obtained spirit-gathering spirit runes earlier. But the 100 Formation Pagoda's test naturally wasn't that simple. There were requirements for the range of the formation, the number of formation flags used, and the effects achieved. There was a minimum standard to pass this level's test. With Lu Ye's current attainments in formations, it wasn't difficult to reach the minimum standard. Almost as soon as he discovered this level's test, Lu Yi already had several plans in his mind, but he naturally wasn't satisfied with reaching the minimum standard. In a test like this, the better he could do, the greater the reward he would receive. Standing in place, Lu Yi pondered for a moment. Soon, a plan formed in his mind and he immediately put it into action. Formation flags flew in all directions, forming the basic framework of the formation. Lu Yi then activated the spirit-gathering spirit runes to form the core of the formation. As his spirit energy surged, his powerful spirit energy allowed him to perfectly control the subtle changes in his spirit energy. Complex runes took shape in the framework of the formation, transforming into the embryonic form of a large formation. To him, this level's test was actually simpler than the previous one. It required less effort. Thus, in just half an incense stick's worth of time, a large spirit-gathering formation was formed. When the last rune was embedded, the entire formation was activated and activated. The surrounding scenery changed once more. Like a bubble popping, Lu Yi reappeared in the small sealed room. Large amounts of rich and pure heaven and earth spirit energy surged out of thin air, accompanied by a ball of fluorescent light. Following his previous plan, Lu Yi first released Hu Pa from the spirit beast pouch. Almost without any instructions, Yi flashed out and took out the jade bottle containing the soul water, ready for battle. Looking at each other, Yi nodded slightly. Only then did Lu Yi raise his hand and point at the ball of fluorescent light. The fluorescent light shattered, and he once again felt as if the entire starry sky was about to collapse. Outside the 100 Formation Pagoda. Today, the 100 Formation Pagoda had resonated twice in less than half an incense stick's worth of time apart. The formation cultivators gathered here were rather excited. After all, this was a grand occasion that they had never encountered before. It also gave them a lot of excitement to talk about. When Lu Yi had arrived earlier, some of the formation cultivators here were sparring, some were meditating with their eyes closed, and some were even discussing the Tao. But now, all the formation cultivators were gathered in groups of 3 to 5, talking loudly about something. This was a scene that was rarely seen on normal days. Usually, even if the formation cultivators here were discussing the Tao, they would control their volume and not disturb others. But today's grand occasion had broken the shackles of the past and allowed them to indulge themselves. Even though they weren't the ones who had triggered the 100 Formation Pagoda's resonance, they still felt honored to have encountered such an event. There were even formation cultivators guarding the entrance of the 100 Formation Pagoda, asking everyone they met if they were the ones who had triggered the resonance. But they couldn't get a definite answer. I wonder who the 2 Taoists who triggered the resonance are. If we can confirm their identities, perhaps we can ask them for advice. What a pity, what a pity. A youth in green said. Those who could trigger the 100 Formation Pagoda's resonance here would definitely be formation experts in the future. Naturally, everyone would be happy to befriend such people. It wasn't shameful to ask them for advice on formations. As for factions, the unique atmosphere of the 100 Formation Pagoda had blurred the boundaries of factions. The cultivators here were all formation cultivators who yearned for the Tao of formations. But it was a pity that the people outside didn't know who had triggered the resonance. Even those who challenged the pagoda might not know that they had triggered the resonance. Taoist Luo has already passed the 50th level. Your future is bound to be limitless. You might not lose out to others. Someone flattered from the side. The 100 Formation Pagoda in the Cloud River battlefield started from the 34th level. This cultivator surnamed Luo had passed the 50th level, which was an extremely impressive result. One had to know that many of the formation cultivators here hadn't even passed the 40th level. Their method of challenging the 100 Formation Pagoda was different from Lu Ye's. They basically challenged one level at a time. If they failed, there was nothing to say. Even if they succeeded, they would exhaust themselves and the pressure on their spirit would force them to leave the pagoda first and enter again when they were ready. The 100 Formation Pagoda would record the levels they had passed. The next time they entered, they would directly go to the next level. It wasn't just the Cloud River battlefield. It was the same when the cultivators of the Sky Expanse sect challenged the 100 Formation Pagoda. That was why Lu Yi had caused such a huge uproar in the Sky Expanse sect when he had passed the 33rd level in one go. However, this news didn't spread because under the orders of the Sky Expanse sect Master Yu Shao and Head Elder Bai Qian, all the Sky Expanse sect disciples who knew of this news swore a heavenly secret oath to never spread the news of Lu Ye's challenge. 7017K. This time, regardless of whether he succeeded or failed, he would choose to advance to the True Lake stage and leave the Cloudy River battlefield. Fellow Taoist Luo, there's no need to belittle yourself. Before the formation cultivator could finish speaking, he suddenly stopped. At the same time, the surrounding noises quieted down. All the array cultivators looked at the 100 Formation Pagoda in shock. That strange rhythm had appeared again. The third resonance of the 100 Formation Pagoda. What's the situation? Some array cultivators even suspected that they were dreaming. In the past, the resonance would only appear once every 3 to 5 months. It was already shocking enough that it appeared twice today, but there was actually a third time? Which powerhouse had triggered this resonance? Why are there so many genius array cultivators challenging the 100 Formation Pagoda today? All sorts of emotions surged, but it did not stop the array cultivators from making the most appropriate response. It was rare for the 100 Formation Pagoda to resonate, and that peculiar rhythm was very beneficial to array cultivators' enlightenment. Therefore, all the array cultivators hurriedly sat up straight and concentrated, silently comprehending. On the 35th level of the 100 Formation Pagoda, Lu Yi once again used his spirit cleansing skills to alleviate the impact and pain on his soul. He began to construct a small spirit gathering funnel, and as he cultivated, he comprehended his gains and prepared for the next level's test. In the blink of an eye, another 6 hours had passed. The test on the 36th level had begun. The array cultivators outside the 100 Formation Pagoda gradually went crazy. This was because something incomprehensible had happened in the past 2 days. After the first resonance of the 100 Formation Pagoda, the second resonance followed after half an hour. 6 hours later, the third resonance followed. Another 6 hours passed. Another 6 hours passed. Another 6 hours passed. Another 6 hours passed. After that, the 100 Formation Pagoda would resonate once every 6 hours. Was the 100 Formation Pagoda broken? Almost all the array cultivators could not help but have this thought. Otherwise, how could there be so many consecutive resonations? However, after some array cultivators boldly entered the 100 Formation Pagoda to test it out, they confirmed that there was nothing wrong with the pagoda. In other words, the 100 Formation Pagoda was not broken. These resonations were really caused by an array cultivator challenging the pagoda. At first, the array cultivators thought that the resonations were caused by different array cultivators. However, as time passed and the number of resonations increased, everyone realized that this was not the case. This was because the time between each resonance was almost 6 hours. This time was almost the same as the time limit for every level of the 100 Formation Pagoda. This was thought-provoking. The array cultivators couldn't help but think of an unimaginable possibility. There was an unimaginably talented array cultivator challenging the pagoda and obtaining excellent results on every level. That was why the 100 Formation Pagoda resonated with him every time. But, was this really possible? This was simply unimaginable. But other than this explanation, there seemed to be no other better explanation. What could be confirmed now was that the array cultivator who triggered the first and second resonance was not the same person. Because the time interval was too short. What the array cultivators could not figure out was whether the subsequent resonations were triggered by the first person or the second person. The news continued to spread. 30 miles away, 100 Formation City was also in an uproar as a large number of array cultivators rushed over. Usually, many array cultivators lived in the 100 Formation City. Only a small portion of the array cultivators lingered outside the 100 Formation Pagoda. However, as the news spread, more than 1,000 array cultivators gathered outside the 100 Formation Pagoda in less than half a day. Moreover, even more array cultivators were on their way. No one wanted to miss such a grand event. No one wanted to miss such an opportunity. Although they were not the ones challenging the pagoda and resonating with the pagoda, they still benefited greatly from the enlightenment. Soon, the area outside the 100 Formation Pagoda was packed with people. As far as the eye could see, a sea of black heads had found a place to sit down cross-legged. Fellow Taoist Luo, this is the 10th time, right? A familiar cultivator near the array cultivator surnamed Luo asked. The array cultivator surnamed Luo nodded. Yes, it's the 10th time. On average, there was a resonance every 6 hours. Now almost 60 hours had passed. The previous resonance was indeed the 10th time. From the initial confusion to shock to the current numbness, this was the true portrayal of his heart. It was also the true portrayal of all the array cultivators gathered here. Even these Cloud River tier cultivators, who were all at the Cloud River tier, were shocked to the core by the repeated occurrences of events that were rarely seen on a daily basis. In fact, these occurrences even occurred in a regular pattern. I keep feeling that this is not man-made, but rather a reaction of the 100 Formation Pagoda itself, another person said. Even though they had already verified that there was no problem with the 100 Formation Pagoda, many still felt that the resonations were not man-made. Perhaps some unknown change had occurred in the 100 Formation Pagoda. Of course, this change was something the array cultivators were happy to see. If the 100 Formation Pagoda could maintain such a resonance from now on, the array Tao of the entire 9 provinces would definitely rise to a new level. After being enlightened again and again, even the stupidest of array cultivators would have gained quite a bit of knowledge. Gazing in the direction of the 100 Formation Pagoda, the array cultivator surnamed Luo did not speak. No one knew whether the resonations were man-made or a reaction of the 100 Formation Pagoda itself. If it was the latter, then so be it, but if it was the former, then the person challenging the pagoda must be a rare genius. The level of array Tao he could reach would be unreachable by all the array cultivators in the 9 provinces. He couldn't help but think of something. When he had returned to the sect last time, his master had told him that someone had once challenged the 33rd level of the 100 Formation Pagoda in one go, triggering 33 resonations, and that person was the famous Wuxia of the Jade Blood sect. To be honest, if his master hadn't told him these things, he wouldn't have believed it no matter what. Challenging 33 levels in one go and triggering 33 resonations, was this something a human could do? His master had not told him this to discourage him, but to warn him that there was always someone better than him in the field of array Tao. He did not want him to be too stubborn. He had not thought too much about it before, but now that he thought about it, his heart suddenly thumped. Could it be that the person challenging the pagoda was Wuxia? Since he could trigger 33 resonations in the 100 Formation Pagoda, his performance in the 100 Formation Pagoda on the Cloudy River battlefield would not be too bad. Array cultivators were entering and exiting the 100 Formation Pagoda frequently, so he had not noticed whether it was Wuxia who had entered the pagoda. But even if it was really him, his performance was too exaggerated. The difficulty of the 100 Formation Pagoda on the Cloudy River battlefield was incomparable to that of the 100 Formation Pagoda on the Cloudy River battlefield. Just as his thoughts were churning in his mind, a strange rhythm appeared once again. Someone in the crowd exclaimed, "It's the 11th time." This number had already excluded the first resonance and counted from the second resonance. Because the array cultivators could confirm that the person who had triggered the first and second resonance was not the same person, but the person who had triggered the subsequent resonance was definitely one of the two. 11 resonations in a row was such a terrifying result. Since ancient times, no array cultivator had ever achieved it. Even if someone had managed to trigger consecutive resonations, it was at most 2 or 3 times. 11 resonations not only broke the previous record, but also stood at a height that a junior array cultivator could not hope to achieve. Wuxia's talent in array Tao was not bad, but he was far from the level of an eternal genius that cultivator surnamed Luo had imagined. The reason he was invincible in the 100 Formation Pagoda was because of the soul-cleansing water. This soul treasure that could make Divine Sea cultivators jealous was now being used by him to calm the impact on his soul, alleviating the pain and pressure. 7017K. Chapter 677. If any Divine Sea Realm cultivator were to find out that Lu Yi was using the soul-cleansing water to calm his spirit, they would definitely reprimand him for being a wastrel. Without the soul-cleansing water, Lu Yi would only be able to clear 3 or 4 levels before collapsing. However, with the soul-cleansing water relieving the pressure on his spirit, he could do things that ordinary cultivators would not dare to imagine. Huge gains. After clearing level after level, his attainments in formations could be said to have improved by leaps and bounds. Compared to 2 days ago, his attainments in formations could be said to have risen by a level. Such gains were something that many formation cultivators could not hope to achieve in their entire lives. However, for him it was merely a matter of a day and a half. This was the 100 Formation Pagoda. The mysteries of this pagoda were far beyond the imagination of the world. Before Lu Yi, no one had been able to exploit the mysteries of the 100 Formation Pagoda to such an extent, passing a levels test in an extremely short amount of time, and then obtaining enormous benefits. After resting for nearly 6 hours, he would enter the next level in his peak state. Passing an even more difficult test, he would obtain even more benefits. It was truly like a rolling snowball, forming a virtuous cycle. Compared to the gains in formations, the improvement in one's cultivation was secondary. In fact, Lu Yi did not even pay much attention to this matter. After each test, he would construct a small spirit-gathering funnel immediately and then leave it be. He did not deliberately calculate how many levels he had cleared. In any case, as long as he had the soul-cleansing water, he felt that even if the 100-formation pagoda was complete and there were 100 levels, he would be able to clear them all in one go. At a certain moment, Lu Yi was carefully comprehending the gift from the 100-formation pagoda, when a buzzing sound came from within his body. It was a sound akin to the surging waves of a great river. Immediately, he snapped out of his trance and sensed his body. It wasn't until this moment that he realized that the spiritual energy river in his body was extremely full. As the small spiritual energy gathering funnel scattered around his body continued to work, pure and rich spiritual energy was constantly being absorbed into his body. The feeling of fullness became more and more intense. He was about to break through. He had an epiphany and immediately guarded his mind. The movement of the river became more and more obvious, and the sound of the waves became clearer and clearer. At this moment, the long river of spiritual energy seemed to have a life of its own, constantly contracting and expanding, until a certain moment, along with the expansion of the river of spirit energy, an invisible wave of spirit energy spread out from Lu Yi. As the wave of spirit energy spread out, the invisible shackles in his body were also broken, and the feeling of fullness disappeared. All kinds of strange noises quieted down in an instant. The surging spirit power quickly circulated in the long river, and the speed of the spirit power flow was a bit faster than before. Lu Yi also felt as if she had been reborn. Sixth Order Cloud River Realm. Silently sensing his body, Lu Yi could clearly feel that the volume of the long river of spiritual power in his body was much larger than before. When a cultivator is in the spirit stream realm, the main goal of cultivation is to open one spirit aperture after another. At the Great Circle, there are 360 spirit apertures. Of course, everyone's aptitude is different. Most cultivators are unable to open 360 spirit apertures. Some can only open 200 spirit apertures, while others can open 300 spirit apertures. The spirit stream realm is the foundation of a cultivator. At this level, the number of spirit apertures you open will basically affect the cultivator's lifetime achievements. Naturally, the more spirit apertures you open, the better. However, the heavens will always leave a way out. Even if you don't reach the Great Circle realm, a cultivator can still advance to the Cloud River realm. However, the minimum requirement is to open 240 spirit apertures and learn a heaven-grade secret art. This is because only the heaven-grade secret art can allow a cultivator to connect all the spirit apertures together and form a long river of spirit energy. Only when the long river of spirit energy is formed in the body can a cultivator be considered to have advanced to the Cloud River realm. At the Cloud River realm, a cultivator has to continuously increase the volume of the long river of spirit energy in their body until this long river of spirit energy covers their entire body. At that time, the long river of spirit energy is not just a long river, but a lake of spirit energy that accumulates in the cultivator's body. This is the true lake realm. When spirit energy covers the entire body, a cultivator's control of spirit energy will rise to a whole new level. Therefore, the strength of a true lake realm cultivator is much stronger than a Cloud River realm cultivator. Although a Cloud River realm cultivator can also use their spirit energy to cover every corner of their body, in the end, there is still a process of spirit energy flow. The spirit energy needs to flow out from the long river of spirit energy, and then under the cultivator's control, it flows to the appropriate location. However, on a true lake realm cultivator, even a random piece of skin contains pure spirit energy. Lu Yi has advanced to the 6th Order Cloud River realm, and is only 3 minor realms away from the true lake realm. Moreover, he could feel that the improvement brought about by his advancement this time was much greater than before. This is a strange thing. Every realm of a cultivator is divided into 9 minor realms. Generally speaking, the 4th and 7th realms are the thresholds. The advancement of the 4th order and 7th order realms often gives people the feeling of a sudden increase in strength. There seems to be no such thing in the 6th order realm. But soon Lu Yi figured out the reason. Previously, he received the baptism of the Heaven's secret bestowment in Fox Immortal Valley, which greatly increased his foundation. The increase in foundation will not be immediately apparent, but will slowly reveal itself as his cultivation increases. In other words, the growth of other cultivators from the 5th order Cloud River realm to the 6th order realm is not as great as Lu Ye's. For him, this is naturally a good thing. There are always people from Myriad Demon Ridge watching him, chasing and intercepting him all day long, so the stronger he is, the more capital he has to protect himself. The hidden danger that Lu Yi was worried about is also solved. When he returned from Immortal Essence City, he always had a faint feeling that his body could not accommodate his soul. Now that his cultivation has increased, that feeling disappeared. Of course, this is only temporary. He has so much soul-cleansing water in his hands, and this time, he is still continuously consuming it in the 100 Formation Pagoda. Although it is to relieve the pressure on his soul and the impact of the huge amount of information, it is also silently strengthening his soul. If this continues, it is very likely that the hidden danger that has just been solved will appear again. Therefore, the road of cultivation is long and heavy. This kind of happiness is difficult for the other cultivators of the 9 states to understand. How many levels have I passed? Lu Yi collected his thoughts and asked. 15. Who was meditating, answered. There were 15 floors, and each floor had less than 6 hours of cultivation time. The cultivation environment here was almost the same as using the spirit lots. In total, the time he spent cultivating in the 100 Formation Pagoda was equivalent to using 3 golden spirit lots. 3 golden spirit lots are naturally not enough for him to break through, but after the Fox Immortal Valley, he has taken a large number of spirit pills every day. After such a long time, he has already taken a large step forward in the 5th order realm. The 100 Formation Pagoda has a total of 33 levels, which means that there are 18 more levels, which can provide him with 3 more golden spirit lots. It is not enough to break through to the 7th order Cloud River realm, but it can increase his cultivation by a lot, shortening the time he needs to break through. It is a bit of a fly in the ointment, but it is still acceptable. The small space fell silent again. He continued to cultivate, while Hoopa swallowed a monster core and fell asleep at the side. Lu Yi also immersed himself in comprehending the gift of the 100 Formation Pagoda. Time passed by, and when the surrounding world energy suddenly disappeared, Lu Yi stood up and waited for the next test. Outside the 100 Formation Pagoda, there is a sea of people. Almost half of the people in 100 Formation City ran over, and there are many who have received the news and are rushing over in a hurry. In the beginning, there were still people who thought that the resonance of the 100 Formation Pagoda was caused by someone, but now there are not many who still think so, because it is too exaggerated. In 5 days, a total of 20 resonances, which is an average of 1 every 6 hours. This is not something that can be done by a human. After confirming that it was not caused by an array cultivator, most of the array cultivators felt much better. People are like this after all. Sometimes they don't care too much about their mediocrity, or they have already accepted it, but if there is someone too outstanding, they will always feel inferior. Fortunately, such a thing did not happen. The resonance of the 100 Formation Pagoda was not caused by someone. Only the cultivator surnamed Luo would raise his head to look at the 100 Formation Pagoda from time to time in his free time. His heart constantly churning with doubts. Is that person challenging the pagoda? Is the resonance really not caused by someone? But whether it was man-made or not, he had reaped a great harvest this time. Originally, he had no confidence in passing the 51st level, but in these 5 days, under the 20 resonations of enlightenment, he felt that his array Dao had clearly improved. He was also confident that he could pass the 51st level. He was not in a hurry to move, because he was not sure if there would be more resonances. Turning his head to look around, the noise and clamor around him made him frown. When did the outside of the 100 Formation Pagoda become so chaotic? In the past, although there were many cultivators gathered here, they were all array cultivators. They would be careful not to disturb others when they gathered here to discuss the Tao. But now with so many people, the scene was chaotic. The cultivator surnamed Luo shook his head and did not pay attention to it, carefully reflecting on his enlightenment just now. At this moment, in front of the safe passage leading from 100 Formation City to the 100 Formation Pagoda, a few figures rushed over, covered in dust. If Lu Yi was here, he would probably cry out in alarm that they were haunting him. It could not be helped, because the few people who came here were all Ninth Order cultivators who had chased after him before. Xiaoliang, Tanshang, Sacred Flame Sects Chu Yun and Zhou Pei were among them. They had chased after Lu Yi to the Pai River, but in the end, Lu Yi was rescued by a mysterious woman and escaped with the help of a transmission array. Just as they were worrying about where to find Lu Ye's whereabouts, they suddenly received news that Lu Yi had appeared outside the 100 Formation Pagoda. Thinking that Lu Yi was an array cultivator, it was reasonable for him to run to the 100 Formation Pagoda. So these people rushed here in a hurry, afraid that Lu Yi would escape again if they were late. They did not come together, but just happened to arrive here together. Could be considered a coincidence. 7017K, you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.